All right, welcome. We are live. This is Orion Rising. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. Welcome, Rick. Welcome, Penny. Whoever else is out there. If you guys don't say hello, then I don't see you in the chat. Please share this out. Like I said, share this out, show this out. It's Friday night, Law of One. I'm trying to share this out as well as we're talking. Cody, welcome. Share this out, show this out. Okay, let me turn off this overlay here so you guys can see my ugly mug and put myself into full screen, which I have not done yet. I'm sitting here kind of running amok, running a little bit behind with a bunch of junk going on in the background, right? As well as the television. Let me check the sound here, right? Although I have to turn that up a little bit for Raw. So we're moving into the next session, and I have a couple of sessions after that primed, because this first one, like I said, the first part of it, I think it's session 45, don't quote me, is like the first half of it just about is them talking about Carla's energy and trying to convince Ra to end the session. So we'll get by that, but I have the next session after that and two more after that primed, just in case I didn't listen to those to find out exactly where we were. Janice, welcome. Like I said, share this out. For those of you who are listening around the world on the MP3 broadcast, you can't see my ugly mug anyway. Nor can you guys talk in the chat, right? If you're on Twitter, if you're on anywhere else listening to MP3 broadcast, you can't talk into the chat. But you guys could always message me at Leonard O'Neill. You could look at me up at on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you're at. Like if you go to podbean.com/ or it's actually orionrising.podbean.com. If you go there, then you could message me at Podbean, who I pay money to funnel this out and create that RSS number that you guys use on whatever app that you are listening on around the world, which I haven't looked in the last month or so. It's been really busy, but before that I was looking because like Sweden, you guys went crazy over there, and all of a sudden blew me up to a month ago. You guys were like 100 views or listens to my podcast in like a couple of days over there. So you guys went, I thank you guys over there in Sweden. Germany, you guys did the same thing. About a week later, you guys in Germany did like 50 clicks on my podcast in like a day. So it was kind of cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the Law of One, especially since, like I said, that, you know, the whole idea. Wait, I wanted to mention something because it is kind of coming up fast. Today is the 4th here in the United States of April. On the 8th of April, if you are in the United States of America or can get here by the 8th, you guys should look up. There's going to be a complete, full 100% total eclipse of the sun that is going to go from Mexico up at a right angle, heading from the west north by northeast across the United States of America. And it will be the last full solar eclipse that is being able to be witnessed in the United States, the lower 48, in the United States of America for the next 45 years. So if you're anywhere in the United States and you can get to Arizona, New Mexico, and up, you could look at the path. It's all over the place. It's going to be crazy trying to get there and get out just for a 3.5 minute, 3 minute and 20-second eclipse. But it will literally, the last time this happened, I was a boy. I was a little kid, and it was in 1978. And I remember I was in school at the time, and we were we you know, back then we didn't have the glasses that everybody can buy now to protect your eyes, so we couldn't look up at the sun to see the eclipse. And we had a paper that we were projecting on from the sun, and we were able to look at the paper on the table to see the reflection of the sun being eclipsed by the shadow on paper, literally, because our technology wasn't the way it is now. So I actually witnessed a full solar eclipse the last time that it was the last time here in California that it was full, because here in California it's going to be like 40%, and the last time there was a solar eclipse a few years ago that came down from the north and went south east across the United States in an October month. I slept through it. I woke up and went, why has it gotten so dark all of a sudden? It's like nighttime. I was like, oh yeah, there's an eclipse going on. But I knew that if I ran outside to see it, we were only going to have a small amount, like now, like a 40%. It's not going to be a full eclipse. So if you're in the United States and you want to, this is like something like Hale-Bopp, like Halley's Comet. It's only going to come by this time in your lifetime unless you are young and expect to live for the next 45 years in the United States. Now, you could go around the world to other places and watch these eclipses, and they happen all the time around the world. You can plot those. You can go. In fact, one of the newscasters on Fox, the national news, Emily Compagno, she travels all over. She had pictures of herself. She travels all over the world and goes and sees these solar eclipses all over the world. And she showed pictures of her in Mexico and a few other places. I thought that was really cool. She said her family's done it since she was a girl, and she grew up. She's a couple years younger than me, like 2 or 3 years younger than me, and she grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I grew up. I was born in Walnut Creek, California, and she was in Danville or Pleasanton, which is the next city over. And she was a Raiderette, a cheerleader for the Oakland Raiders, and a lawyer. And now she does commentation and talks of politics on television. So I thought that's kind of exciting, because literally we're from 5 miles apart where we grew up. We never knew each other, didn't go to the same schools, but we literally lived in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. And her family was doing that her whole life. Now, like I said, the only thing that I ever saw of it where a full eclipse was in 1978. And she talked about that one when she was a kid as well. So we were both young at the time, really young, but I remember seeing it. She said her father scared her because he was yelling at the sky. I don't know what, she didn't elaborate, but if you can do it, and yeah, see, Rick said the next one is 2492 or 2942. Well, no, that's not right, because it's 45 years, they said, from now. So if this is 2024, 45 years is not 2,492. That's 250 years from now, or 200, and yeah, close to that, 240 years from now. So it'll be 20. So what is 45 plus 20? So 24 plus 45, that's 60, 70. So it's close to that. It's going to be like 2070 or something, somewhere around there, right? When the next one is going to be in the United States. But it'll be other places around the world, because that happens all the time around the world. 2070, Denny said, thank you. I was trying to figure out the math, right? 45, 24, it's actually a 9. So it wouldn't be 27, because 5 and 4 is 9. So it would be 2069 then. Right? Yeah, 2069 will be the next one. But it could be 2070, and they just said 45 years to round it off, right? So, but it's you could look that up. You're probably more accurate than I am. I'm just doing the math from what I heard. I didn't actually look it up. So if you think you'll still be around in 2070, which I don't think I'll still be around in 2070, because I'm 56 now. So in 45 years, I could be, because I will be 100. So I could still be around. If I'm around and when it does hit and I'm still alive, I'm going to go see it. But I'm not going to travel, obviously. Now it would take me quite a while to do that, and I have my mother to take care of, so I couldn't do that. But if you're capable and you're anywhere in the central belt of the United States, going in that northeast corridor, north by northeast corridor, I would say if you can do it, do it. That was like when Halley's Comet came, we all went outside and looked, because that one wasn't supposed to be back for another 80 years. So I'll be dead before that one comes back. Or again, I'll be somewhere around 100. And what else was there? I remember in 1972, I remember going outside and watching the astronauts going to the moon. We could see the reflection. First, we could see the fire from the afterburners going up into space. Then we could see the reflection of the sun shining back down on Earth because it was in the evening and the moon was already out. We got lucky. And I remember everybody was outside. My father said, everybody quick outside, you got to see this. And I was a little teeny boy. I was born in 67. So this was 72. So that made me 5 years old. And I remember going out and he pointed up to the moon and said, do you see that light that's shining up there? That is a rocket ship with men in it from the United States. And and if you watch it, it's going to go until it disappears onto the moon. And the whole neighborhood, everybody down the street, up the street, we're all standing around outside, not talking or milling about and talking to each other and looking at this spectacle. And I remember not really realizing 100% of what my father was saying at first. And then I figured it out. And then I was taking it all in because I didn't know if I would ever witness that again. And I never witnessed it again other than on television. So I was happy that I had done it. So my point of all of this is, if you're in the United States or Canada and you can get to the United States in that corridor, starting with Arizona and New Mexico and heading up north to Canada, or if you're in Canada and you can get all the way over to the east coast of Quebec and Newfoundland, you guys will also be able to see it there. So you might want to take a look at that if you can get over there. If you're on the east coast of the United States or the east coast of Canada, it'll be a shorter drive for you guys because you're already up there. So if you're in Maine or Connecticut or anywhere in New Hampshire, you guys got it coming. So take a look at where you can see it and enjoy it, because 45 years till the next one's going to come through the United States. Okay, so enough of me going on about that, right? See, Penny says it's less than 20 miles away from my home, but it might freaking rain. Yeah, see, that would suck. If it did that. We're supposed to have good weather here at that particular time, but we're only going to get to see 40% of it anyways. And it's going to be, I think, in the morning. I'll have to look at the time. Last time I slept through it. This time I'll try to get up just so that I could go out and maybe glance up there with my sunglasses on, but I still probably shouldn't do that. Put on 3 pairs or something. Okay. So let me do a sound check and we'll go ahead and get started on with Raw today. And like I said, it's the session, the beginning of it, as you'll see, we'll kind of, but if you have any questions as we go, please ask them and I will stop and talk about what's going on until they get to something pertinent. Okay. So let's do a sound check. You guys let me know, right? In New York, it'll be 11 a.m. right? So if it's 11 a.m. in New York, right. In I believe it's the same time. So 11, 10, 9, 8, it'll be 8 a.m. for me here. I'm usually just cracking an eyelid at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes a little bit before that, but I'm usually just kind of lounging around in bed, not really wanting to get up yet at 8 o'clock in the morning. Depends on what time I fell asleep the night before. If I fell asleep early, then I go, okay, I might as well get up. Nothing to do here. Right. So I may or may not remember it and sleep through it. But if it was going to be a full eclipse, I would set my alarm and make sure that I get up and do that. I did that with a few other things when we had like a full moon that was a harvest moon and closer than and brighter than any other time in history. And I made sure to go out and witness that. So there are some things that I try to witness because you don't know if you're going to be alive or around to witness anything else. That's why when I was a kid, when Halley's Comet came by, I made sure to go out and look up. And when what is that comet? Whatever it was called, Momoa, or whatever it was called, came by. I couldn't see it in the sky because I don't have a telescope, but I made sure to pay attention to Hubble and all the telescopes and look at all the pictures and videos that people posted online from it, so that I could witness that comet going by. Okay, so when Apophis comes in 2032, I'll be paying attention to that because that one's coming back, and some people call it Tiamat, other people call it Apophis. Depends on what you know it as from what culture, but there's a big comet that's going to be returning, which gets closer and closer to the Earth, and it's supposed to come by in 2032. And the scientists aren't really exactly sure what it's going to do when it does come by, and they're not really talking about that too much because they don't want to scare people. Okay, let's do a sound check for the Law of One, and we'll get started here.
March 28th, 1981. 44.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 44.1 Questioner. The instrument had some question as to her vitality. We were having a hard time appraising it. Is it possible for you to comment on this?
Yeah, and welcome, Anna. I just saw that you were talking in the chat there. So hopefully you guys heard that okay. I can turn it up if I need to, so just let me know and we'll go ahead and continue here.
Ra, I am Ra. We scan this instrument and find that we may be of service without infringement due to this instrument's decision to abide by the most careful appraisal possible rather than the most desired. We have been surprised that we have been able to maintain contact on a regular basis during this most intense period of negatively influenced interference. Sexual energy transfers have at some workings given this instrument additional vital resources upon which to draw.
That's actually a good question, Denise said, but I'm glad you did that because I just took off my glasses. She said, not yelling, but could the eclipse have caused the earthquake here today? The sound is good, by the way. Yes, thank you. I saw that from there. That is a good question. It is possible, although the eclipse isn't going to happen until the 8th. So I'm sure there's other factors that are involved in that. The fact that we had a earthquake in Taiwan, even though it's on the other side, it's on the Ring of Fire. Taiwan is down by Japan, which would more affect the United States than anything else. All of that stuff is sort of encompassed together. And if you look at the other way around the planet, it is possible that the tectonic plates shifted a little bit. But the energy of the Earth getting prepared for the eclipse itself is a possibility. I wouldn't think that the scientists would correlate it unless it happened at the exact time, say that there was the eclipse. If an earthquake happens somewhere along that corridor during the eclipse or multiple earthquakes, science would be then more inclined to say, wow, that may have something to do with the gravitational pull or some energy coming off of the sun and bombarding the Earth. So I don't think that I think it's just is a happenstance, that earthquake that happened, which is funny because people out here in California, we're laughing. My thought was 4.8. We sleep through those in California, and literally sleep through those. When that happens, we go, "Oh, that was a good one." 4.8, almost a 5.0. That one's a pretty good earthquake, and we don't worry about it. However, in New York, that's a very strong earthquake because none of the buildings that are there, the structures that are there, are designed like out here in California. Everything is designed to withstand earthquakes up to 7.8 or 8.0. Because we're more prone to earthquakes, floods, and fires out here, we have those contingencies in order. So for the people in New York, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity, because the last time an earthquake hit that big was in 1928 or something like that, in the state of New York or anywhere near that. And it was in Jersey, just, which is, back there. If you're in the East Coast, that like the states over there are like 100 miles long. Or less, 50 miles wide, and you can drive through like the 13 colonies of the United States in like 2.5 hours on the East Coast. Here in the state of California, if you're here in the San Francisco Bay Area or up here in the Sacramento, you can't get out of the state without driving more than an hour in one direction, and that's only if you go east. If you go north or south, it's 8 hours worth of travel, literally border to border from where I am at. 9 hours if I'm going down to Tijuana, 8 hours if I'm going to Oregon. So you guys out there, that's like Texas is so much bigger than California that when you get out to the West Coast, we have these country miles out here that you guys are unaware of. And back there, an earthquake happening in Jersey, is my point, is only 15 minutes away by car from downtown Long Island down, you know what I mean? So it's pretty scary for the people who don't have earthquakes. But that would be like if a hurricane or a tornado happened here, especially a hurricane happened here in California, which is hilarious because if you watch the television programs that happen out here in the state of California, specifically Cal Fire, that one has had and is coming up this week with a tornado happening in the state of California, and that doesn't happen out here. They have firestorms that are insane and create its own tornado, which does kind of happen, but not like they're showing. And then 911, which just moved to ABC, they just had a tsunami and that was a 400-foot tall wave that knocked over their cruise ship, which is like 15 stories tall, and it dwarfed that and flipped it completely upside down, like the Poseidon Adventure, and had a hurricane off the coast of Baja California, which hasn't happened in the history of the planet ever. And when there was a giant earthquake in Japan and we had a tsunami warning in the state of California, the wave that came into South America, Central America, Mexico, and California was about 1.5 feet tall. And that was the tsunami that we got from the earthquake. And I think there was one that was really bad, that the tsunami that crashed into Indonesia, or not Indonesia, but over there, and I think it was Japan as well. The one that did Japan back in 2010 or whenever that was, that one, when it hit the state of California, was only 4.5 foot wave. Okay, so on television, in these programs that are happening in the state of California, they're having these things happen that just don't happen in nature out here in the state of California. The fires that happen on Cal Fire are a little bit more close to what goes on in the state of California during fire season, honestly. But it's weird that Cal Fire is based, Cal Fire is a real thing out here, by the way. There is a fire agency called Cal Fire that is the entire state, which is a state agency, as well as individual fire people. And then we have other agencies too, like what's the other one called? I can't think of what it's called. My buddy was doing it for a while, where you're a fireman just like that, where like the smoke jumpers and things like that. They're all over the United States as well. But the fires and the tsunamis and hurricanes going off the coast of Baja, that just doesn't happen. Further out is south, Fiji and Tonga and closer to Australia out there in the Pacific. Yeah, that happens in the South Pacific, but not up here. That's just insane. We get earthquakes, we get fires, we get floods. That's what we get in the state of California. So I think it's hilarious that they're doing that. I'm watching this 911, and it's been like 4 episodes now where they were dealing with that and everything that was going on this cruise ship and them trying to survive that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good that this wave was like 300 feet tall and it didn't hit landfall anywhere else during the episode. And there was no emergency, even by Mexico, talked about. It was just this rogue wave that was really big, that was less than 100 miles off the coast of Baja, flipped over this one ship, and it didn't affect anyone else at all, and nobody noticed it. I was like, oh man, that's hilarious. Anybody heard of Noah? Anybody heard of Noah? There's buoys for tsunami warnings anywhere where tsunamis are possible that float in the water. And if a tsunami comes through and a wave is large enough, any movement sets Noah off, and it goes to the computer like radar and tells people there's a big wave that just went through this buoy out here and it's on its way in this direction. That's how they know about, because of tsunamis happening. Right. I think it's funny that most people don't understand what's going on. Right. And CERN. Right. Now you guys are talking about that. I think there's more possibility that CERN would cause something like that, although CERN's out here, so it wouldn't cause an earthquake in New York, but they are up to stuff. So I wanted to get back to what you were talking about, Denise, and asking about. I don't believe that there is anything to do with the moon cycle. However, during full moons, that could cause, because it changes the gravitational pull and there's more gravity pulling on the Earth from the moon. That's what causes our tides, is the moon. The moon itself floating around out in space, circling the planet, actually is pulling the tides in and out all over the world. Our tidal path that works through the entire ocean around this globe is directly and only there because of the moon. So that does pull on everything else, not just the water. It pulls on the whole electromagnetic field. So there could be something to that. But I wanted to point out, because of Rick making the CERN and the scientists working on stuff, when it comes to prophecy, like the Philadelphia experiment going on the East Coast, there is experiments that you guys don't know about that are going on the East Coast that have to do with continuing that Philadelphia experiment ideology of time travel and that kind of stuff. Because according to prophecy, there's supposed to be an event which they actually made a mini series out of back in the 90s or the early 2000s. I don't even remember the name of it, but there was this event that was happening and it was wreaking havoc, and it had to do with the Bermuda Triangle ideology of people disappearing. And scientists started looking into it, and it seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse as time was going on. And the more they investigated it, the more they realized that somewhere in the future, this event was caused. And Star Trek, The Next Generation, did another version of the same thing, that something they do in the future causes a time rift, and it goes backwards in time, and it's detectable at a very small way in the past. And the closer you get to the future, the more and more intense this distortion happens, and they're racing because some of the people in the reality in those two series, one miniseries and one television series from Star Trek The Next Generation, start to realize that they think it has something to do with a time anomaly, and it's possible that something in the future causes this event. I bring that up because of what was going on with the Philadelphia experiment that you guys don't know about unless you watch the movie, and even that's pretty vague about what really happened during the Philadelphia experiment, and how the reason that everything went bad was because something that they were doing in the future as they were trying to do things in the past, and because they created a paradox. They didn't realize that they were creating a paradox because something that they are going to do in the future was affecting the past, and they were unaware of it in the future and in the past. And so when they did something in the past, it triggered an event that would only be triggered because of something they did in the future. The other thing that was similar to that was the Prince of Darkness, the movie where they were using tachyons to travel backwards in time to warn of an event that was supposed to happen in the future. And the only way that you could fix it was to realize it in the past and fix it before it happens in the future. Otherwise, the future would be set, and the devil would bring his father through to this reality. So it was based on the same, all of these are based on the same theory of an event that happens in the future that causes something in the past to change the future. And it also changes the past, and you can't change it. When you get to the event, it has to be stopped prior to, so people have to remember it. Same thing happened in another episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, where they had missing time, and they were trying to figure it out. And the more they kept trying to figure it out, the more they kept being living in a paradox and having missing time. And it turned out they had stumbled onto an alien race that was a xenophobic race and didn't want to have anybody knowing about their existence. And they were going to destroy all of the crew of the Enterprise to save their existence from the world. But they convinced them to not do that and send them backwards in time, except Data, the computer, was immune to it, and he had to be ordered to lie about it and try to cover it up. And they kept discovering that he was lying and covering something up. And so they kept going forward every time. And eventually they had to convince themselves. Data had to send information back to tell them not to stop him. So they had to then figure it out and not stop him. And then when they found they were like in a time loop for like a month, and then they were able to get out of it. I tell you this because getting back to prophecy, and then we'll get back to the law of one. Getting back to prophecy, that I know that they're still working on time travel and things that are going on, and somewhere on the East Coast, and I'm not going to get involved into the area, but it's on the East Coast of the United States. There is supposed to be an event where there's an explosion that is done because of what they have been doing and are doing, and they screw up and blow themselves up, and that causes a rift in the space-time continuum, and they're aware of it even now because I'm aware of it. I've been aware of it since I think I was 16 when I read the prophecy, and been checking everything else off. So it's not like, oh, well, you heard some prophecy, and how do you know that that's even true and it wasn't just made up by somebody? Because everything else I read, I checked off of the list. Okay. So, but like Nostradamus and the predictions, the future is unwritten, so it doesn't have to happen. However, I also know that because of what's going on there in the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania area, New York area, with all the mining that they've done in the coal mines, I do know that an earthquake, a very strong earthquake, is supposed to wreak a lot of havoc on the East Coast, and a lot of it is supposed to actually sink 10 or 15 feet because of that, big giant sinkholes. And I don't mean like you're driving down the road and a sinkhole opens up that drops a bus. I'm talking about like almost the entire seaboard of the eastern coast of the United States goes boom and drops. And so a lot of people are going to get injured from that. And also London in England is supposed to also have the same problem, but that one is supposed to be triggered by a nuclear explosion during the Third World War, where that explosion causes a tremor that causes the earthquake to happen under London. And because of the London Underground and all the other mining they've done under that island, the same thing happens, and that goes to where it's almost knee deep in water in most of downtown London, which, if you've ever been to London, is literally on the water. And it's already on sandy ground, so it's not actually bedrock there as it is anyways. And most things that are really heavy are having to be shored up because, like Venice, and I don't mean Venice Beach, California, but Venice, Italy, that whole place is sinking too because it's on sand. Okay. So well, that's what I'm talking about in New York and the Eastern Seaboard. Yeah, that's a lot of that is in prophecy, but I don't want to get too involved in the details of what I know about that, because when it comes to prophecy, we try to not scare people, because if I tell all of you guys exact dates, times, and places, you're going to focus on those in a negative way. And if you get afraid, that fear feeds into that timeline actually happening. So back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, even before that, 60s, 50s, 40s, 60s, 50s, 70s, into the 80s, prophecy was something that people were going after and seeking out until like-minded people started realizing that our viewer creation is creating the reality. And that's what all these people talking about prophecy were warning about. So that's why you don't hear much about prophecy anymore being taught and talked about openly around the world. Some individuals do, but it's not talked about on a wide scale, and you don't see a bunch of publications about it. That was done to block a lot of people from talking prophecy and to discredit them. But even those people generally go, we don't want people to know about this because we don't want it to happen. So they're trying to change the narrative and not talk about negative things that are a possibility to happen. It's not everything. Nothing in the future is certain. Nothing, because we have free will. So if you get a glimpse of something that could happen, the more you talk about it, the more it's going to happen. For instance, the entire concept of hell, and you going to hell if you jerk off, according to the church 1,000 years ago, that if you play with yourself, you're going to go to hell. And you're going to go to hell for everything. It didn't matter what it was, you were going to hell. That was all done to control the population, to do what the church wanted it to do. And because of that, we're creating this negative place where everybody's going to go to, because, he who is without sin cast the first stone. You can't go through life living in this place and not commit a mortal sin according to the churches. You just can't. Children who don't know any better do things that are affront to God according to the Ten Commandments, right? And young people that don't know. So we're supposed to believe that you can, because our laws say that you could break a law and not know about it, and it's your fault anyways, because you should have known about that law and didn't do it. And that's what they say about the Bible and all of the religions, that, you should have just known, because you should have been paying attention to whatever your guru is that's teaching, and you shouldn't have ever done those things. Therefore, and they judge you. As a human, they judge you and say, you're going to go to hell for that. That's just like if you go back in time to the 1500s and into the 1600s, even into the 1700s in Western Judeo-Christianity, if somebody killed themselves, they would chop off their head because they don't get to go to heaven ever. And they're going to go to hell now, and they chop the head off so they can't have a head in hell and they can never be resurrected. They believed that shit was real and worked. But if you chopped off a head from a corpse, that person could never get into heaven. And so they believed that it was their responsibility as a human to do that because that's what God wanted. But it doesn't say that anywhere in any Talmud that if somebody commits suicide, you have to chop off their head and they go to hell and they don't have a head and they can never, and they're stuck in hell for all of eternity now. But that was done to try and dissuade people from committing suicide. That doesn't justify it. It's still wrong to do that and to literally dismember a corpse to prove a point to those people left behind who are already horrified because somebody killed themselves. Oh, and by the way, we chopped off your wife's head or your daughter's head or your son's head or your dad's head because now they're condemned and they're going to go to hell for all of eternity. Fuck off. Get over it and live. You know what I mean? So that's just insane. Okay. Bo, welcome, brother. I haven't seen you in a minute. Right? I'm not on TikTok anymore because I'm deleting my TikTok. My TikTok might still be up, but I've deleted the app and scheduled it for deletion. So if you're not on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere else, then I wouldn't be able to see you anymore. And you're mostly on TikTok on there. And I don't know why. You're obviously on Facebook right now, right? But you keep getting banned all the time. So it's half the time I don't know who until I see you and they go, hey, that's Bo. I know that guy. I've known him for years and years, almost 10 years now. Okay, so let's continue here with Ra and get off of the whole prophecy thing. But let me finish that point that it is possible, in my opinion, because of what I know about prophecy and the timeline of that experiments that they're already doing over on the East Coast, and those experiments are not in New York. They are, however, in, I believe, the Philadelphia area, that area, which is, only 50 miles away from New York anyway, 25 miles away from, it's literally the border, Jersey and Pennsylvania, where Philadelphia is only 50 to 100 miles away from New York. So, and literally a border with New York State, upper New York. Upstate New York. So that area of the United States is already they're doing stuff out there. So CERN's out here where they're also doing crap, but everybody just blames CERN for everything. In fact, even CERN, they're concerned with the time anomalies, which they lie about and say is a Mandela effect. It's just you guys having a mass. What's the word that I'm looking for? Not hysteria, but illusion, that for some reason, the weird thing is that people all around the world have the same memory that is the wrong memory. That's why they call it the Mandela effect, because some people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and that was Stephen Biko who died in prison, but I'm not one of those people who remembers Nelson Mandela dying in prison. But some people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and there was never a Stephen Biko in the reality that you were in. And now you've crossed over into a different reality where Nelson Mandela survived, became the president of South Africa, and then eventually died, and his wife took over the whole apartheid ideology, or getting rid of apartheid and freedom for Africans in Africa, or equality for everyone. And this Stephen Biko was committed suicide, allegedly, quote, fingers in the air, where they killed him the same way Jeffrey Epstein was killed, with nobody to witness and two inept guards taking a nap and all the cameras malfunctioning at the exact time, but no other time before or after that, of the death. Okay. So something that they're doing possibly over on the East Coast that has to do with the chain of events that is going to cause a lot of problems that they're going to cover up even when it happens. So even if it does happen, and what you'll hear is that there was an explosion in a subway tunnel or something, and that, I don't think it's any terrorist organization, unless they're going to use that to go after terrorists, and then they might say that it's terrorist. But at the time that something like this does happen, it'll be something that'll be explained away as a gas leak or something else, anyways, that you guys won't get to know about on television or around the world. You'll just know that something happens over in the East Coast of the United States, and it wreaks a lot of havoc, and a lot of people die. They may not even tell you about the scientists who die, because they would have to tell you, like with the Philadelphia experiment, no one heard about that for 20 or 30 years after it occurred. And then they started making movies about it 35 years later. Okay, let's continue with the law of one here. Stay off of prophecy. Here we go.
However, this is not so at this working end. Therefore, the will of the instrument drives its bodily complex. This instrument has no judgment about this service.
Welcome, Tina. Right, Tina came back again. Right, she was here a couple weeks ago. Right, welcome. She used to be here every week. For most of you guys that are here now, wouldn't remember Tina. Denise maybe might, but most of you wouldn't remember Tina. Some of you do, because you were around when Tina was around. But Tina used to follow us for a long time. I worked with Tina for a long time, helping her in spiritual ways. And she's been off doing her own thing, which means obviously she's doing okay, right? Welcome back. All right, let's listen.
The faculty of will, while recognized as most central and valuable, could in this application cause serious distortion in bodily complex of the instrument. May we note that martyrdom is not necessarily helpful. We ask this instrument to examine these thoughts, judge, and discriminate the possible truth of them, and if they be deemed true, we suggest this instrument release the power of judgment to the support group whose interests are balanced far more than this instrument's. Allow decisions to be made without expectation or attachment to the outcome. Our hopes, may we say, for long-term contact through this instrument depend upon its maturing ability to be of service to other selves by accepting their help and thus remaining a viable instrument. May we thank the questioner for allowing us to speak to this point, for we were aware of the distortions incumbent upon one whose will to serve is not regulated by knowledge of limitations of bodily complex distortion. 44.2 Questioner, could you please terminate this contact as soon as necessary, since we are not aware of the vitality of the instrument at this time? Ra, I am Ra. In your way of speaking, our hands are, to a certain extent, tied. This instrument has called upon inner reserves which are dearly bought. Therefore, we have the honor/duty of using this energy to the best of our ability. When it becomes low, we shall most certainly, as always, express the need for ending the working. The only way of avoiding this sharing of service at whatever cost is to refrain from the working. It is a dilemma. 44.3 Questioner, can you tell me what the tone was that I heard in my left ear when you started your communication? Ra, I am Ra. This was a negatively oriented signal. 44.
See, that you have to pay attention to. Like I said, there are some places, I'm going to stop talk here, that I teach this. We have been teaching this around the world forever, but I've been doing it for 35 years now. I was taught this by my father when I was a kid. And then as you get older, you start to realize that everybody starts to learn this. If you're any way a psychic or a medium, you know that if you have communications with your higher self or your guides, you know this to be the case as well. Left ear knowledge is the devil on your left shoulder. Right ear or left ear tone information. Right ear tone information is your conscience or your higher self or your guides. Or if you're a medium and you're talking to the other side, someone that is channeling to you or communicating with you, somebody's relative or whatever who's passed on, all information that is of a positive nature comes in from the right-hand side, including tones and things like that in your ear. All information that is on the left-hand side is negative information that comes in. This doesn't matter whether you're right-handed or left-handed, ambidextrous. This is the way the universe is set up. Right side of your body, which on your screen, you have to remember I'm backwards. So this is my right hand. This is my left hand. Right-hand side of your body is positive energy and information. Left-hand side is negative information and negative energy. So get used to that and know that to be a thing. Nobody, the only time anyone says, well, for me, it's left side is positive, that's an evil person who is in service to self, and they equate with the ego, and that's why that information to them they claim is positive, because that is a constant in the universal mindset. There isn't it's not open for interpretation, and it never has been. It is just one of those things that is the way the universe works. So anyone could claim that, and when they do, they're wrong, right? Well, for me, it's left side is when I know I'm talking to my higher self. No, that's your ego, and it may have convinced you that it is, in fact, your higher self giving you information. But the truth is, the way the universe actually works is that your left side is 100% And there is no one on the planet that has ever said, other than evil people, no, for me, left side's the one that I listen to. Those people who say that are people who are evil, self-serving, and they listen to their ego. Most of those people don't say that because they think they are the ego. They don't think there is any such thing as an ego, except for, some people have an ego, man, and they're just, but they don't see it as a separate thing. Do you see? So that's why I wanted to make sure to point that out, because that was a negative energy information coming into that side, and then just moved on, right, without explanation. And I feel that that's something that's necessary because of how much that we teach people this, and how much weight we put on the realization of energy and messages coming into you, and that you will find. And this is why we also say, don't believe me. Don't believe anything that I've said, and you pay attention to the information that comes in and get used to where it comes from, which side, left side or right side, and see how it turns out in your life by listening to that information and thinking it's real. You can do that on your own. I can say, don't touch that stove, it's hot. And you'll either believe me and not touch the stove, but eventually you're going to touch the stove because you want to know whether it's hot or not. So eventually, until you burn yourself on the stove, you're not going to believe that it's hot because you've never experienced it. So that's why we'll tell you this and then tell you got to figure it out for yourself. So even if I try to warn you ahead of time, you may doubt that and go, yeah, let's just say, right? And comedians joke about this. I remember, I can't think of his name right now. I'll think of it in a minute. It was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago now, when he was talking about using a spray bottle to spray Windex, and how the Windex has a little nozzle that you turn, and and one is the stream, that's like a sniper stream, and the other one is the mister. And he said, never do that and cross that up and get it halfway in between. Bad things happen. And his joke went on about that, and how some of you are going to go home and you're going to go grab that Windex bottle and you're going to turn that nozzle halfway in between. You're going to pull that trigger to see what happens and whether I was telling the truth or not, right? And I love that whole skit. It was just hilarious, and I can't think of who that was. No, it wasn't Andrew Dice Clay. It was I can't think of his name. He went on to do a movie, a comedy, where it was Employee of the Month. He ended up doing in that movie. What was his name? I can't think of his name right now, but I just had it on the tip of my brain. But he was funny. He was also the one that talked about being in online at a bank, and it was called The Sneeze. You can look that up on YouTube. It's called The Sneeze. And there was an atheist who was standing in line, and the guy sneezed. And he could see the light was coming in at a right angle where I could see in the light, I could see his debris as he sneezed. And then he said to the guy, "God bless you." And the guy looked at him and started schooling him, and was like, oh, you believe in God? And so it went into this whole skit about this guy being an atheist and talking to him, and then him, because he is a Roman Catholic. He was a Catholic, a very devout Christian. In fact, he even says, I didn't say bless you because I'm not the big guy upstairs. I said, God bless you, because only the big guy can bless you. And it went on. It's one of my favorite skits. I'm not going to ruin it because I'd have to go through the whole skit. But prior to him talking about the sneeze, he talks about Windex and that nozzle. So you can look that up, that skit that he did. And I can't think of his name right this second. But if you look up the Employee of the Month, he was the star of that movie, and he was a stand-up comedian. He was hilarious. And he did that. So you can go to YouTube and look up the Sneeze comedy skit, and you'll get that. It's a few minutes long, 4 or 5 minute long skit that he did that was hilarious about a sneeze and this guy who was an atheist, and them talking to each other about that and what happens. And I love that. It's funny, very funny. Okay, let's continue here with the law of one, because like I said, here's again, other than stopping to talk about the information and how you get it and what that means, Dawn's really trying to say, well, you need to stop, man, because she's not sure of her energy. And he's like, look, she knows what she's doing. Ross said, look, she knows what she's doing. Let's continue.
Point 4 questioner. Can you tell me how I would hear a positively oriented signal? Ra.
Yes, Dane Cook. Denise said Don Cook. Dane Cook. Thank you. As soon as you said Don Cook, I was like, no, it's Dane Cook. D-A-N-E. Dane Cook. Look him up. Dane Cook, the sneeze. Watch that video. It's hilarious. That whole comedy skit that he does up on stage. Oh my God, that entire show was hilarious. And it's old, like I said, it's like 20 years ago now, or maybe not that old, but probably it was back in the 2000s, right? Before 2020, that's for certain. All right, let's continue.
I am Ra. Two types there are of positive signal. First, in the right ear location, the signal indicates a sign that you are being given some unworded message saying, listen. Take heed. The other positive sign is the tone above the head, which is a balanced confirmation of a thought. 44.5 Questioner, are there any other negatively oriented signals that I get? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. You are able to receive thought forms, word forms, and visions. However, you seem able to discriminate. 44.6 Questioner.
Yeah, that comes through all the time. We're bombarded with that stuff all the time, right? So, I mean, Don asking that question is valid because he was talking about psychically receiving that. Yes, dreams, visions. This is part of the modus operandi. I don't know if Rob points that out here, but this is part of the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, which is the Illuminati now, or the Anunnaki, or the Bilderbergers, or Skull and Bones. They're all the same organizations run by the same inmates of the prison. And literally, this information is happening all the time. When you look at the news on television, whatever channel you turn on is slanted towards a specific political party in whatever country you live in, which is either a progressive or a conservative ideology, because those are the only two ideologies that there are, because one's positive and one's negative. One is self-serving and one is in service to others. However, everybody that's involved in that, 90% of the people that are involved in both of those parties are all evil. They're all self-serving. They're all narcissists. They're all about themselves and power and money. Greed, power, money, control. Only insane people seek power. Insane people seek power. Always. People who are narcissists and about themselves always seek power. And there's other people who try to get themselves into positions of power to help and do these things, but that's only 10% of the population of the people around the world who try to run companies and businesses and government and all of that. And they're quickly sought out and looked into and tried to be stifled by the people who are, forever, whatever you want to call that, forever swampers, whatever you call that in your country, to where they're, forever being in control and trying to, on both sides of your aisle. It doesn't matter what your political point of view is. Know that 90% of all the people who you think are representing you are evil, and they don't care about you. They just need your votes, or have you have the illusion of a vote so that they're in complete control. That's what it's all about. You have to realize that this entire way of life wasn't the way things were done on this earth. They were done in any place where people could get total control. So that's why you have tyrants throughout history running governments, monarchies and oligarchs and polyarchs and all of that. I don't know how much you know about political science. There's many categories that are, few, many ruling over few, one ruling over few, and everyone in between, including corporations, corptocracies, corptocracies, which is what is most of the world right now. You just don't even understand what that is. You don't know that that's your new kingdom. It used to be a king who sat in a castle and only his family got to rule. Now it's the same thing going on from behind the scenes through corporations. So it's a polyarchy, monarchy that is a new invention in the last 200 years on the earth. It was already done that way prior to that. It's just that you had one person trying to be in total control and let everyone know about it. And they called them kings or pharaohs or whatever you called them, czar, or whatever you called them in your country. And eventually the entire families or other people got tired of having, one person run down the line, and none of the rest of us ever got to do anything. So you had the bankers started taking control. including the Knights Templars and the like, with money, and then everything else that we have entailed. Now I'm reading books about the stock markets around the world and the control of, and I wrote a book about the global banking, and that nobody wanted to read because it tells too much of reality of what's going on and how money is just fakely invented. And I'm reading about the stock market and how that works, and how 90% of everything that goes on is designed like a casino, to where the house gets all the money and everybody else loses money, including, for instance, Donald Trump's corporation that went public. It went public, and everybody bought into it. And 2 days later, he lost $1 billion from his assets because of the stock plummeting. And there's a very good possibility that was done to him on purpose by hedge fund companies and people who hate him that are across the aisle, on purpose buying and selling his stock to flood the market so that he would lose money. But it's also just as likely that he purposely did that and took $1 billion loss, because he's going to expand his wealth even further in the future in less than 3 months, off the backs of all the people that think they were helping him by buying his stock, because corporations do that on purpose, and you're unaware of that. So if you ever want to play the stock market, never get into somebody who's going public and go, I got to get in on the ground floor. The only way that you can get in on the ground floor is if they came to your door and they're like, we're starting a company and selling stock. And that very rarely happens these days. It used to 100 years ago. They go knock on your door and try to sell you the stock as they were trying to get the corporation going, or the company. Now they go to companies to do the same thing, and they go to the rich first. So by the time you're aware of it and they hit the market and they're going live on the market to be sold shares, and you go to try and buy it, you're getting ripped off. They're selling it to you on purpose to tank the stock by selling it to you high. They tank the stock, they've made money off of you, and then you get freaked out and you sell low and they buy it back from you. And then the stock goes up, but most people sell and don't get back in, and they make all the money because they buy it in the beginning to drive the price up, sell it to you. They've already got the stuff before it goes public. They already have the stock. So they're the ones selling it to you. You just don't know it. And you're buying it, and it's driving the price down, and then they flood the market with too much. And even the people that are in the corporations do the same thing, and they sell off their own stuff to tank it. And all of you guys buy it, and it goes down, and then you freak out and you sell it, and they buy it right back from you. And the money that they already had that they sold to you, they gained, and now they're buying it back from you at half price. And then the stock splits, and now they double their profit. So they say they had $100 million worth of stock. They sold it to you for $350 million. And then they're buying it back from you, $350 million worth of stock. They're now buying back from you for for $100 million or less. And instantly it's now worth $900 million 3 months later. And they started with $100 million in stock. And you got ripped off and tanked, and they do this on purpose. This is true. You can look that up. Worldwide, they do that. So you have to be aware of the first step in avoiding trap is knowing its existence. Most people are not aware that, Joanne, welcome. Most people are not aware that they even do this. And the one thing that you can count on is in the stock market that the average person always buys high and sells low. And the way you're supposed to make money is buy low and sell high. And they count on you not knowing because you have no idea. It's just like no one takes a civics course, so that no one takes economics or business, and they don't actually teach it in this country anymore. I don't think they do, but you have to want to do it. They used to teach it in regular public schools and colleges. Now they have the courses, but you have to want to go and say, I want to sign up for this, and then they'll teach it to you. But they don't do it as a curriculum. It's not part of your mandatory learning anymore. And around the world, they're not doing it either. So you don't get anything that helps you in any way succeed or have the knowledge, because it's easier for them to stay in power if none of you understand how they got their money. Do you see? They don't have to compete with you as you start competing with them because you know what they know. If they take that knowledge away from you, that's what the modus operandi is with everything in the world. It's what they've done with everything. You don't know about it, but it's there readily for you to learn because they have to do that by the laws of the universe. But you don't know about that because they've taken that knowledge away from you. So you don't even know that they're supposed to do it. But they put it right there in front of you so that you can never go after them for atrocities against the humanity because, look, it was there. You as an adult are responsible to figure your own shit out. Because we give you the ability if you know what you're looking for, but how do you know what you're looking for when they don't tell you that you're supposed to be looking for it? That's why. That's why people like me are trying to get you to think for yourself. Critically thinking, free thinking people are illegal on this earth. They can't kill you off anymore. Okay. So you can learn all this stuff. If you have a smartphone or a computer, the entire knowledge of the universe as we know it is at your fingertips. And you're playing video games and watching TikTok and trying to get likes. Do you see? That's why those algorithms are designed to put you like a drug and hook you on that, because it keeps you from actually using the internet and your smartphone to better yourself and make more money, or to make money at all. They're keeping you at a steady, even keel of just enough food to keep you alive, just enough shelter to keep you coming back to your job, and that's it. Just enough education to where you're in a caste system now. If you were born poor, you're going to be poor for the rest of your life, and so are your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, unless you change something about your life. Let's continue.
Is there a reason that I am open to these signals of a negative nature? Ra, I am Ra. Are you not all things? 44.7 Questioner, I think that it might be a good idea if we terminated the contact at this time to allow the instrument to gain more necessary energy before continuing. This is my decision at this time. I would very much like to continue the contact, but it seems to me, although I can't tell the instrument's level, that the instrument should not use up any more energy. Ra, I am Ra. We are responding to an unasked query. However, it is most salient, and therefore we beg your forgiveness for this infringement. The energy has been lost to the instrument, dedicated to this purpose only. You may do as you will, but this is the nature of the instrument's preparation for contact and is the sole reason we may use it. 44.8 Questioner, I'm not sure I fully understood you. Could you say that a little different way? Could you explain more completely? Ra, I am Ra. Each of you in this working has consciously dedicated the existence now being experienced to service to others. This instrument has refined this dedication through long experience with the channeling, as you term it, of Confederation philosophy, as you may say. Thus when we first contacted this instrument, it had offered its beingness, not only to service to other selves but service by communication of this nature. As this contact has developed, this dedication of beingness has become quite specific. Thus once the vital energy is dedicated by the instrument to our communications, even if the working did not occur, this vital energy would be lost to the day-by-day experience of the instrument. Thus we indicated the importance of the instrument's releasing of the will from the process of determining the times of working, for if the instrument desires contact, the energy is gathered and thus lost for ordinary or mundane purposes. 44.9 Questioner, in that case, since the energy is already lost, we might as well continue with this session, and we should very carefully monitor the instrument and be the sole judge of when the sessions should occur. Am I correct? Ra.
Ben, welcome. Welcome back. Ben said, I'm back.
I am Ra. This is profoundly correct. This instrument's determination to continue contact during this period has already extended the low energy period. 44.10 Questioner, this is very revealing to us. Thank you. Each of us gets the signals and dreams. I have been aware of clairaudient communication at least once in waking up. Can you suggest a method whereby we might, shall I say, nullify the effect of the influence that we don't want from a negative source? Ra, I am Ra. There are various methods. We shall offer the most available or simple. To share the difficult contact with the other selves associated with this working and to meditate in love for these senders of images and light for self and other selves is the most available means of nullifying the effects of such occurrences. To downgrade these experiences by the use of intellect or the disciplines of will is to invite the prolonging of the effects. Far better than to share and trust such experiences and join hearts and souls in love and light with compassion for the sender and armor for the self. 44.11 Questioner, can you tell me the source of the instrument's dream of this morning that she told to me as soon as she woke up? Ra, I am Ra. The feeling of the dream, shall we say, was Orion influenced. The clothing of the dream revealing more the instrument's unconscious associative patterns of symbolism. 44.12 Questioner. In meditation a number of years ago my arm started to glow, moving rapidly involuntarily. What was that? Ra. I am Ra. The phenomenon was an analogy made available to you from your higher self. The analogy was that the being that you were was living in a way not understood by, shall we say, physicists, scientists, or doctors. 44.13 Questioner.
Now, we do that a lot more than we realize, especially in dreams, because the dream world and dreams are metaphors. Almost exclusively the communication in there from our higher self or our superconscious or subconscious mind is done through imagery and metaphor. So there's a lot of allegory qualities to interpreting dreams. So that's why if you look up, it drove me crazy when I was younger. I would look up interpretive books forever where I could find them in bookstores and libraries of interpreting dreams. And like 90% of everything was negative. And I was like, that's just that the odds of that are just wrong. So it drove me crazy. And so I started doing that and working with people interpreting dreams, because when if you use medium abilities as it is to interpret, or intermediate, medium meaning interpreter, communicator from one side to the other, meaning from this reality to the people that are crossed over or disembodied. If you have that ability, then you have the ability to also interpret dreams, because it's doing the same thing. You just have to tap into their higher self to find out what the dream meant when they talk about it. And you do the same thing. So anybody who's a talented psychic is capable of doing dream regression or dream work, interpreting dreams, whether they're aware of it or not. That's a higher learning of the interpretiveness of communicating with higher self or people on the other side as a medium. So it drove me crazy, because everyone always said the negative and never a positive, and it just can't happen. I mean, even if you're doing card reading, there's a positive and negative aspect to card reads. Everything in the universe has equal application, positive and negative, and the connotation of or consequences therein of positive or negative information. So dream interpretation wouldn't be any different, because the universe is cyclical in nature, and it is 50-50. It is exactly in this place designed to be that. So you can't have a book that is interpreting dreams negatively or positively at a slant of 80 to 90% in any direction, because the universe doesn't work that way. It's against the laws of the natural order of the universe. The yin and the yang are exactly that, for a reason in the universe. So it drove me crazy when people would do that and you would read a book and everything was, you're doomed and you're going to die and you're embarrassed to be naked. I'm just like, this is just somebody that's making shit up to make money. And that's what most of the stuff is out there. And that's why when people say, well, do you know of a book that I could read on that subject? I'm like, you can look, right? You can look because you're going to find that most of the stuff that's out there is someone's opinion, and they're not actually quoting the way the universe works. And if they are, they're usually telling you that, and they're not taking any credit. They're saying this is the way it works in the universe. And unless it sounds, then if it's not 50-50 and they're not saying to you there is no right and wrong, there just is. And it's a choice of whether or not you're in service to self or in service to others and the other people around you in the universe itself. Because the only people who are either in service to self or in service to others are humans. They're the only ones who make that choice. It's only when you start becoming conscious. So even animals, as they start to become aware, self-aware, they start making those choices, right? So there is no evil tree. There is no evil fish. But they do things that we would consider evil because they live in an ecosystem of violence, because that we do. You cannot survive in third dimension without killing life and consuming that life's flesh. Oh no, I'm a vegan. What do you eat? Tofu. Tofu is a live, living culture that you're consuming to take that energy and transmute it into your body. So is a piece of lettuce or fruit or vegetable. You're killing that life form to survive, no matter how you want to try and justify it. Well, I'm not going and killing a Bambi or a deer or a cow. I'm just what? You're going and planting a plant that can't defend itself, doesn't have a chance to run away or stop you, and you're ripping it out of the ground and biting on it and eating it. What's the difference between grabbing a fish and doing that, or grabbing a deer and slitting its throat and gnawing on its flesh? No different. It's you justifying that and saying, I'm not just going and putting a cow in a pen and never giving it any freedom and just killing it and eating it. But you're taking the seed and planting it in a box that it can't get away from and growing it until it's eatable. And then you're ripping it out of the ground and gnawing on it. The same thing. You're cultivating that food for yourself, or having a fish that you're creating in a tank so that you can eat it. Well, it's just sustainable. So is a cow and so is cattle. They're sustainable because you're paying somebody to bring a bull and put their sperm in the cow to make more cows. Okay, it's no different. And the difference is that you are justifying in your own mind, you're pretending that you're not killing something. Do you see? The truth is, if you're being honest with the world, drinking water is destroying life because that water is alive and it has energy in it, and you're consuming that. You can't live here. The ecosystem is designed until you transition fully into energy, and you don't need any sustenance for a physical body, which is not until you get halfway through the sixth dimension, by the way. You have to consume life. The cycle of life works that way. Everything that's here lives by consuming life from something else on an ecosystem. Something has to die, so something else lives, and then somebody eats that. Okay, or that dies to make something else live. That's just the way this whole thing is set up. That's set up this way on purpose for the cycle of life, for us to have this experience.
What I am trying to get at in this session is any practices that we might be able to do to best revitalize the instrument, for it is going to be necessary to do all we can to do this in order to maintain our contacts. Can you tell us what we could best do to increase the instrument's vitality for these contacts? Ra, I am Ra. Your experience was a function of your ability to contact intelligent infinity. Therefore, it does not have a direct bearing upon this instrument's vital energy. We have spoken before of those things which aid this instrument in the vital energy, the sensitivity to beauty, to the singing of sacred music, to the meditation and worship, to the sharing of self with self and freely given love either in social or sexual intercourse.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop there, even though they're talking about sexual intercourse, because I want to talk about what Rick was talking about. I've seen in many spiritual, this is Rick talking, I've seen in many spiritual pages, people feeling odd, unmotivated, all sorts lately. I've been like that for about 6 months. It's weird. This is where everyone is going on this earth, because we're going through a transitional phase. This is what we've been talking about since 2012. 2012 ended what the Mayans and the Incans and the Aztecs called Baktun 12. And that's the big round of their 3,630 some odd year cycle that is moving into Baktun 13, which everybody said when Baktun 12 ended in 2012, oh no, that's the end of the universe. We're all going to die. No, they just didn't write the other calendar for us and leave it for us. Okay. They all ended, and that culture ended, and nobody made a new calendar. That's it. It would be like as if nobody made the 2025 calendar, and at the end of this year, at December 31st, 2024, there is no more calendars that nobody made on the earth for you to find. That doesn't mean the earth is going to end. But if the calendars were created for another 100 years and then our culture dies out and we don't create any calendars and nobody's around to tell the people that, and people find our culture and then find our calendar, and our calendar ends 100 years from now and it's now 100 years later, you could then go, well, the universe is going to come to an end because those people 400 years ago didn't make another new calendar. That calendar that is created was created 6,000 years ago. Okay, so when Baktun 12 ended, when the Mayan calendar ended in December of 2012, that was a 6,500 or 6,600 and some odd year old calendar. So no new one had been created in almost 7,000 years because they didn't need it. And the culture died out and nobody remembered it until it was discovered. And then people were looking at it hundreds of years, almost 1,000 years after that culture disappeared off the face of the earth. Do you see? So everyone was like, oh, the Mayan calendar is coming to an end. We're all going to die. No, we just lived long enough to see that, and their culture didn't. Okay. So the point of all of that is, this is where I'm getting to what Rick was talking about. Let me go back to that. Everyone around the world, we're aware of this. Everyone around the world is becoming increasingly more confused and looking around and wondering what's going on, because everyone is realizing that this way of life is not working. So therefore, they also are starting to realize that all of the religions are failing. Everything is failing around them. And whether you're aware of it or not, that's confusing, because this entire way of life, the devil shall rule the earth for a certain time, that time is over. So there is a vacuum that is being created now, where you have this old elite guard of evil people in control of the world who are trying to hold on to the control that they've had for thousands of years over everyone on this earth, and a status quo that they created like a blanket for you to live in. And that's no longer working for the masses exponentially as time goes on, because there's so many people here that are raising the vibration and focusing energy to wake everyone up, that it's beginning to happen. So the first thing that happens is confusion. What is going on? Because you all start to realize, they're all just blatantly lying. They didn't used to do that. Yes, they did. You were just not aware of it. And now you're becoming aware of it. So for you, it's brand new, and these people are no longer even trying to hide. They're just lying out in the open. They've always been lying out in the open. You have just never noticed it before because you weren't capable. This confuses people. Your realization, and I talk about this all the time, and all those of us who are awake do, your realization that your parents are just people disappoints you. So when you, as a child, as you're growing up, your parents are all-knowing, all-seeing. They know everything. They are in charge of the world. They are kings and queens, and surely they know all, because they tell you they do your whole life, and you trust them. And then as you start getting older, you start looking around, and then all of a sudden reality hits you, and you realize they're just people, and they don't know a fucking thing. Then you think you know more than them, because you must, because they're old and they don't know anything. Because they're not cool like me. I'm one of the cool kids. I know all the lingo of how everybody talks now. I know the dance moves. They don't know any of that. And they're just stupid. And you think you know everything. Until you get old enough to start seeing people behind you who are in school, and you're now in your 20s going into your 30s, and now you become what your parents were to you when you were that age. And then you go, whether you find it because of that, or one day you wake up and you're scared because now you're living a life and you have to pay bills, and you have to pay rent, and you have to have a job, and you have to take care of everything and clean and cook and do your laundry and do all the things that your parents had to do. And you get locked into doing that to survive. And then you realize you really don't know how the world works. That scares you again. And if you have children, you don't want to let them know that. So you pretend that you still know everything for their sake, which is what your parents did for you and their parents before them. Then there comes the time, as you are an adult, that you look at the leaders of your country and realize they're just people like you and like your parents, and that they really don't know a fucking thing, and they're scared children too. Then when you look around the world, you realize the entire planet is being run by children who are afraid of the dark, and that confuses you, and that scares you. Okay, so you want to go back into the matrix and forget all of that and just hunker down and not believe any of that's true, and just do your job and pretend that none of this is real. And some people choose that way of life, and they refuse to look at the world in any bigger picture. They don't care, and they just want to just put the blinders on. Other people don't. And those people become confused because they look around and they go, oh my God, nobody's driving this fucking truck. This entire planet is just running helter-skelter on full speed. Nobody's steering the horses and we could crash at any moment. That's the realization that en masse, the entire population of this planet is starting to realize now, Rick. So it's not a bad thing. It is only scary when you are looking and going, there's nobody steering the horses. When you don't realize that the horses are being steered by the universe itself, and that there is somebody steering the horses, there is somebody driving this boat, you just can't see who that person is. And you have to trust that everything's going to be okay. And it scares you because you don't know how this thing's happening. Do you see? What's happening en masse to the mass population of this earth is the realization that the governments have failed, the religions are failing, the governments are failing, all those people that are supposed to be the authorities are not. They're making shit up as they go. In fact, they're lying to you, and you're realizing this, and people around the world are realizing this. And the best thing that created the catalyst for that was this last ditch attempt to take total control of the world, which was called COVID, that didn't work. That did more harm for evil people than they ever imagined it would do. Their theories were that 85 to 90% of all people will just shut up and do what you tell them to do when you force them to do it. That's an actual study that they did. And they counted on that happening. But what they didn't realize is that 10% of the population who refuses was stronger than the 80% or 85% of all the other people that were kowtowing. And that things that were taught to me as a knight in leadership and to other people in leadership, that if one person stands, another will stand with them, and that has the domino effect, and more people will stand against tyranny, against evil people, and all it takes is one person to not back down, and other people will go, I agree with that guy, who wouldn't normally do that for themselves. But because somebody else says, they're like, I'm with that guy. I don't care. I'm cool. I'm with that guy because I don't agree with what all they're doing, even though I'm scared now. That guy doesn't seem to be afraid, or that woman. I'm just using a man figure here because I'm a guy and I'm using it as a generic. That man or that woman is standing and not being afraid. Leonidas did that with his men. Even though they all died. They all stood together and died. Not everybody died in that battle. The Arcadians who were there helping them, there was another 10,000 men who survived that battle. But the 300 died to the last man because Leonidas stood strong and stayed, and they loved him enough to stay and die with him to prove the point. They died on that hill. Men and women have done that throughout time, and they don't want you to know about that. So what's happening on this earth now is that starting during COVID, people like myself refused. I never got the shot. I wouldn't let them give it to my mother. I didn't wear masks, refused. And when they said, it's a mandate by our governor, I'm like, that's not a law, and you can tell him that I said so and have him come over here and arrest me for not wearing a diaper over my face. Okay? I'll be the guy shopping around. You call security, and when somebody comes here and tries to arrest me, I'll own this place because I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue them. And then if the police come get me, I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue the state, the county, the city, and everybody up every chain, and I'll get fucking rich. And don't think that's not going to happen. And they knew that what they were doing was not legal. And even the sheriff's departments across the United States, here in this county in Sacramento, they're like, they're like, there's a curfew, a lockdown. Everybody has to be off the streets or you're getting arrested. The sheriff was like, we're not going out and patrolling and arresting people for that. I'm not going to go and arrest people because they're not wearing masks in this country. More people fought against that. And then they were claiming that everybody was inoculated and there was only a small few of people that were not inoculated that were causing the problem for everybody. Now, the actual statistic is out of 380 million Americans, there's only 120 million people that ever got any shot. That's 1/3. 2/3 of the population of this country never got a shot. 1/3 got at least one shot, or at least some version, because some people got 4 and 5 and 10, and some people are still getting them. But those are the same ones that have always been getting them. But when you heard it on the news, it was 1% of the population is not getting a shot, and they're killing everyone. The truth was that was a lie. They've now admitted 4 years since this pandemic has gone away that only 120 million Americans, and 380 million is a soft number because we've had 12 or 15 million just in the last 3 years show up here. And that's not factored into that, okay? So there's probably more like 450 million human beings or more living in the United States. And out of all of them, they've only inoculated about 120 million of them. So the truth is 350 million or 330 million Americans never got the shot. But they'll have you believe that there was 4 of us that never got the shot and we were the ones killing everybody. Okay. They're lying about all of that. They're lying about that. And they've come out and said how many people actually, they talk about it on the news, how many people actually got at least one shot. And probably 80% of all those people have gotten multiple shots because they believe in all the shots. That's the standard number for the people who are already getting the flu shot. So the same people that were already getting all the other shots are the same ones that got those shots. But the news was acting like all of the everybody that was doing it was the small minority who were evil and they were killing everyone for not doing it. And some people still believe that because they refuse to look at the actual numbers. The point of that is, all of this is that what's happening because of the people who fought back and other people were like, I'm not getting it either. I refuse. And we refused. Those people naturally were already doing that with everything anyways. Those people are the ones that have always been murdered by evil people to stop them from saying what I'm saying, to stop them from telling anyone. They can't do that anymore. So they have to just erase you off of, like Bo keeps getting deleted because he says things that are a little more volatile, and he's being that divisive refusal to buy into their crap, and he's being that person. And he's putting up with that, even though he keeps getting deleted and he keeps getting banned from everywhere. He keeps returning to do it again. Most people don't do that after the first or second time. They're like, okay, I was warned. I'm not going to do that anymore because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know if Bo's still here because he came back as Ben a minute ago. If he is still listening, Bo, you know what I'm talking about. He's been doing it for like the 10 years I've known him. he keeps doing it. And I encourage him to continue doing that because he's serving a service for the world, even though it's frustrating to him and everything that's happening to him. The same thing happens to me. I got deplatformed 2 years ago off Google. More than 500 episodes of my show deleted because I would refuse to allow them to have access to my bank account and all my passwords and all my medical records. And so then they claimed I went against their terms and conditions and deleted me. But then I just turned around and went to a different email account that I already had and opened up the new account, and they didn't delete that. They're like, okay, well, we showed him. Because most people, I lost. All the people who were following me, 85% of them are not following me anymore because they don't know that I'm back under a different name on Facebook, or on YouTube. Do you see? So they did their job and silenced me on their platform. I'm still on their platform and I'm live on their platform currently talking. But my footprint on their platform is now, 100 people or so, where before it was like 4,000. Do you see? And going up, it was getting close to 10,000 people. So you see my point? So they stifle you now. They kill you off by deleting you. That's the same where they used to literally put a bullet in your head or kill you off. And if you become too popular, then they try to deplatform you, like you see them doing with people on the internet. They try to do it with Joe Rogan. They try to do it now. They're on The Rock's on Dwayne Johnson because he refused to back Joe Biden, and so now they're going after Dwayne Johnson. They can't take him out. They don't. You guys have no idea how important and how much money Dwayne Johnson has. The guy who was The Rock in WWE. The guy's on the board of the UFC and the NFL, or not the NFL, but the USFL, AFL, or whatever they're calling themselves now. Him and the XFL and the USFL merged into one football organization, the same way the NFL used to be the AFL and the NFL, and they became one. They merged back in the 1960s. They were two different leagues. The XFL and the USFL have now merged into the United Football League. The UFL, and he's on the board of directors. He's owner of that. So he's not going anywhere, and he's a movie star, and he's the pro wrestler who was The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and he's got other endeavors where he's also a king of Samoa or Fiji or one of the Pacific Islands because he's literally royalty from there. So he's not just some schmo, but he has a big enough voice now to where he can take them on and just go, no. They're going to come after him and try to do damage to him, but he's defining, and people are seeing that he's like, I don't, you know what? Just like when Michael Jordan was selling Nikes and they wanted them to back the Democrats. And he said, conservatives buy tennis shoes too. Oh man, they went after him for that. They didn't like the fact that he was, that he would not choose a political side. And he was like, people are people. I'm not going to be a politician. I'm a sports figure, and so I'm going to endorse everyone and sell shoes to everybody. I don't care who they are. Those people have a voice that's big enough to be defiant, and they refuse to let either side force them into a box. What that does is that creates a scenario within the psyche of everyone on the planet, and because we have gone from the warlike masculine Kundalini energy moving into the feminine Kunda buffer energy of the universe, the age of Aquarius, Baktun 13, there's a shift that is now happening across the entire human spectrum of creation that is here. And we're becoming more caring, more loving individuals, and the people are fighting back. All men are becoming pussies and back in my day, you were a man's man. And those people are going to die in the next 5 to 10 years because they're old, and they come from a time in the 1930s and 40s when men were manly men, and women should be backhanded and get in the kitchen, you barefoot bitch, and you're supposed to have my kids and make my fucking dinner. That's the way they treated people and women 50 years ago when they were in their 20s. 60, 70 years ago when they were in their 20s. Okay. And then they're the ones who are trying to tell you that men are just a bunch of wimps now. They should be more like you were, and rape little boys and girls and treat people like that. Think about look at those people who are telling you that and trying to emasculate the men. And then you have people that are trying to do that even more so to take control. And all men should have sex change operations because they're truly women. Weird that they want to make all women men and all men women, but they don't want to let men be men and women be women. Think about that. They want to convince you that if you're a woman, you really should be a man. And if you're a man, you really should be a woman. Right? But they're not just leaving men to be men and women to be women. They're trying to confuse the genders and make you something that you're not. All men are actually women and all women are actually men. That's what they're saying to you with this whole DEI thing going on around the world. Wait, what? So hold on. So all women should be transitioned to be men and all men should be. Well, if you guys both do that, you can't have children. They're trying to lower the population of the earth and make sure that nobody can have children because they think there's too many people on this earth. So if they can cut off your genitalia and give you the other one, but now you can't have kids, and cut off your genitalia and give you the other one, but yet you can't have kids, they've done their job because you don't breed. You don't have kids, then you're going to have to adopt. And then they want you to convince your kid to get a sex change operation too, because they're trying to euthanize the people and downgrade. And that's actually happening. You're just unaware of it. The population of this earth is decreasing rapidly because nobody is having children for the first time in history. And it's all because of what they're doing to you on purpose, because there's too many people and they need to downsize, and they used to be able to just get you into a war and kill you all off. But that's not happening anymore. They're not capable of doing that. Okay. So I know I'm going on about politics, but politics is the religion of evil. It is the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders that Ra is warning us about. Everything that you see going on, this entire way of life, this existence that you think is normal is not and was not normal on this planet until a certain time. And that was so long ago that you're unaware of it because you've never lived without this way of life, ever. Even if you've been on this planet for 100 generations, because it's been here longer than that. But it used to not be. 75,000 years ago, it wasn't like this at all. Okay? When that civilization died and this one began, that is now dominant on this earth, it has been run by evil people, and they have gobbled up every place that wasn't like this until it's been like this. And that has only been in the last 500 years. Prior to that, there was pockets around the earth that were not like this. And there's always been ebb and flow where people have been resisting this all over the world. And they still are. You're just unaware of that. And you think the evil people are in control of everything when they're not. They just want you to believe they are because they're in control of the outlets. And that is what you pay attention to and think is the truth of what's being told. It must be because they're honest. And why would they lie to me and tell me lies? Then as you start paying attention and you start realizing that, because that's what's happening, it's making everybody afraid and they're getting depressed and they don't know what to do. And so because of that, they're turning and looking for people to lead them, and nobody's leading them. Because as you noted, when you go into these chat groups, you're going to find that the people that are in there that you think are going to be the ones that are awake are just egoic and already infiltrated. I remember going to a chat group and one of the women that was there was, well, the rules of the chat group that they wanted me to join was that nobody could advertise anything. Can't advertise. We don't want any of your videos. We don't want any of that stuff. And I get there and I'm looking over the group and there's a 1% people who are running the group advertising all of their stuff. And no one else gets to advertise anything. So I questioned that and said, wait, if you guys are supposed to be awake in this group that's supposed to be this very awake group, and your rules are nobody gets to advertise, how come you're advertising your book and so's this other person and this person's advertising their podcast? Oh, well, those of us who are moderators and people who run the group, because we own the group, we created it, we're promoting our stuff. Oh, so you created a group where you won't allow anyone else to bombard anybody with commercials so that you could bombard them with commercials to sell your products. No, that's not what we're doing. That is exactly what you're doing. And I've had that happen to me in almost every group. I go to the group and they're like, we don't want anybody advertising anything. And I go there and everything that's being posted are advertisements. But the only people who get to post are the moderators and administrators. So they're promoting all of their stuff and no one else gets to promote anything because they decide what gets posted and it's all their stuff. And if you don't like it, they kick you out. And people put up with that because they want to belong to something. And so they start following people and I own Ancient Aliens Worldwide and we don't allow any promotions on there unless it has to do with Ancient Aliens and UFOs and the like. But then it has to be approved. So if you're a person who has a book or a podcast or something like that, it has to be approved by us and we'll put you on and we'll interview you on there. I don't promote my own show on that group. I own it. And I don't promote my own books or my own shit on that group unless it has something to do with Ancient Aliens. Okay? I'm going by my own rules. I'm not there promoting my shit and not letting anyone else promote their shit. I'm not letting anybody promote anything unless we're aware of it and we do it for you. So if you're talking about your new book, we'll help you promote it on that channel. Okay? And we don't charge people for it. Not yet, but we've talked about doing that because of the reach that we have worldwide. But we haven't started doing that. But I don't promote my own stuff. And I own the group and created it. And it has more than 300,000 worldwide members currently. I would be a hypocrite if I did that and then promoted my book every day. Put it up on the screen for everybody to read my book, buy my book. Do you see? But people do that. So the very people that you're turning to follow are egoic and not as awake. And you're subconsciously or superconsciously, you're aware of that, and it creates even more angst. So when you go into these groups where people are allowed to talk, they're like, oh my God, it's scary. I don't know what's going on. And I'm down and I'm depressed and everything feels weird. And it doesn't feel, because what's happening is the entire planet is going into a phase of feeling that, because for the first time in history in the last 75,000 years, everyone is starting to realize that all of this is fake and a lie. Do you see? I know that probably I went on far too long and you guys probably had questions and I didn't have my glasses on. So I'll look that over as we let Raw play. But you guys have to realize that that's what's happening in the world. And that's why people are looking around. And there's so many people they've bombarded. Everybody's got a podcast. Everybody's got a show. That right now there's no new technology to circumvent that anymore. So there's so many people that are trying to cash in that you have one person that has like 20 groups because they're trying to cash in. The problem with that is that everything is so watered down that nobody knows where to look. So they just hunker down in a place where they, that's like Cheers, the old television series, and the song that when everybody wants to go where everyone knows your name. I don't know the exact words, but that was the gist of that. Everybody goes to where everybody knows your name. So you go to a place where you get to know the people there, and then people just stick with it, whether they like it or not. At least I can go there and hang out with people who are kind of like-minded. And that's what happens. So unless I'm trying to sell you something and use the Jedi mind trick on you to get you to build and be focused on only building likes and clicks on my platform, which I could do, and I would have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, but the content would wane, and it would only be about what you're used to being programmed with. I could do that in a second because it works. People go to McDonald's because they like McDonald's. People go to Burger King because they like Burger King. People go to whatever, Newcastle, Domino's, whatever you have in your country. You watch the news channel that you agree with. You watch the programs that you like and that your friends, so that you can fit. So that when you go to work, whatever your friends are all watching, you watch too, so you have stuff in common and you can talk to them and you can feel like you're part of the clique. Everybody wants to be, we're social beings. So everybody wants to, that's why sports teams work. So when you have whatever your country is, the local area of your country, whatever that big sport is, and everybody's behind it, you either defy it and don't want anything to do with sports at all, or you get involved and you wear the hats and the jerseys and you watch it on TV so you can talk to your buddies. See that game last night? Oh, it was a great game. Did you see that shot? That guy took a shot from almost half court and he kicked it all the way over and the goalie missed it and it went in. Oh my God, I just cheered. And everyone goes, I know, dude, that was so cool. And if you're a woman and you may or may not like the sports, I don't know, but you know what I mean? You maneuver yourself to other people that like what you like. And sometimes you will like what they like, maybe because you don't like it, but because everyone else does and you don't want to be the outcast. That is what's happening in the world and always has. Those people who choose, it's a hard road to walk, to choose to go against the grain, because you become the outcast and your group of people around you, friends and the like, becomes very, very small. And that's very lonely. And it takes a very strong person to walk on the outside fringes of society and to see society for what it is, to be that outcast. And they've shown you that throughout history. If you watch the old Kung Fu movie from television series from the 70s, Kwai Chang Caine did that. And everywhere he went, he got into trouble because he always triggered somebody's ego, and they were all 10-year-old children mentally, even though they were 20 and 30-year-old men. And so they would always come after him and try to kill him, and he would always have to defend the defenseless and the weak and fight off these bad guys. And then he would move on to another place because they were all trying to kill him. And then when he would get to the new place, the same shit would happen. You see that in television series now, just in a different way. It's an allegory telling you the same thing. Celeste, welcome. Celeste knows what I'm talking about. Celeste, you just popped in. Maybe you were here for a minute and I didn't notice. But Celeste knows, like me, she gets kicked out of every respectable group because she does the same thing. She gets there and she looks around and goes, so why does God need a starship? You know, she looks around and goes, okay, so nobody's supposed to promote anything here, but I noticed that all the guys that are in charge are promoting all their own shit. Why is that? And they're like, you're out of here. And so I remember when I first met her years ago, the first thing she said to me is, you guys are going to kick me out of this group because I get kicked out of every group that I'm ever in because of who I am. And I laughed and said, you're going to do just fine here. And we never kicked her out of that group. She's come and gone whenever she's felt like it since I've known her. And I love her for that because she's never wavered of who she is to fit in for other people. She is an individual and she stayed that way and she's still that way. So you came into the perfect time, Celeste, for me to, I know it sounds like I'm trying to pump up your ego, but I'm not, because she's always been that way. Since the day I met her, she hasn't changed that way. And she's defiant towards these people that are bullshit, who are like, you know what, we do it my way here. And if you don't like it, you're out of here, which means they're looking for a reason because they're in control. Just ask them, they'll tell you. And everybody else has to kowtow to them or they're going to kick you out. Everybody that I know that I equate with, Ray Rhodes is the same way. She goes by a different last name now because she's married and I can't remember her married name. And I love her husband too. They both play World of Warcraft. They're cool in my book. I play World of Warcraft still. But Ray it's the same way. Everywhere she goes, she gets kicked out or people hate her. Peter Coyle, who I haven't seen him here today, he's probably got a gig or he'd be here as well. Peter is the same way. He'll tell you every time he talks, Lee, that guy kicked me out of all of his groups. So Bo, if he was still here, or Ben, if whatever the account that he's on when he was here earlier, the same thing happens to him because he's not causing problems by going and looking for them. But when he gets to a place, he looks around and goes, so wait a minute. So this is hypocrisy. You guys are saying that nobody can do this, but you're doing that. And then people get mad at him. And he's like, screw you. I'm not going to kowtow to you. And they're like, you're out of here. That is exactly what's going on in the internet. That's what's going on in politics, in that evil religion. It's going on around the world. That is the modus operandi of narcissistic evil people in every endeavor. They call it politics. They call it the corporate ladder, stabbing somebody in the back. All of that is the same mindset. Those people who can weather that and not be swayed by it and just accept it, like Donald Trump is doing to the Democratic Party, whether you like him or not. He's that type A personality where he's like, screw them. I'm not afraid of them. And they're going after him in every way, trying to lock him in prison. And he's still fighting them, defying them. Robert Kennedy Jr. is another person. He's doing it he was a Democrat, still is a progressive, but he's running as an independent for the president of the United States against Joe Biden, and they're trying to eradicate him and erase him off the face of the earth right now and won't let him have any airtime because he, again, will not kiss the ring. He's like, no, you guys, even though your agenda is pretty similar to his agenda of the progressive left, he still is not going with their forever swamp ideology. And because his father and his uncle were both killed for doing the same thing, the same people who are descendants of the people who killed his father and his uncle hate him for it. And he's not afraid of them. He's standing up to them. Okay. Those people, even though they're both Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr., respectively, are on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to their ideology in that religion, in politics, both of them are on the same side of being against those autocrats who are in charge now, those oligarchs who are in charge now. Both of them don't like the status quo the way it is. And they want to believe that they want to be the guy that's in charge. And so because of that, there's that war that's going on. Those people are defiant to the system, which Tom McDonald talked about in his song. Okay, right. So that's a triple fire sign, right? I was born to be defiant. So I mean, I'm a Virgo, but I'm a triple Leo, right? Even though I'm a Virgo, that's by the 12-month calendar that we have currently, the Greco-Roman calendar. I'm a Leo by the 13-moon calendar, and my name being Leonard, my initials being Leo. Leonard means Lionheart. Leo means lion, and so I'm a triple Leo, which is aggressive and defiant. In fact, the name Lionheart means strength of the lion, heart of the lion, meaning defiant. Leonidas means Leonard. Leonidas is the Greek word for Leonard. King Leonidas of the 300 who stood against Xerxes and fought off 1 million men and died doing it, which spawned the Greeks to take over the entire known world after that. In his revenge was done because of his strength as a person and who he was born to be. Some of us are just born to be that way, and we're defiant, and we refuse. I refused to get the shot during COVID. I still won't get the shot. Haven't gotten the shot. I don't like wearing the masks, and if I walk into somewhere and someone says you need a mask, I tell them fuck off. Call the police and have them arrest me because I won't put a diaper on my face. Not putting one on. There is no law that says I have to do it. Well, we can reserve the right to refuse your service to here. Okay, then you're not going to get my money unless I already pay you. If I go to a hospital and I pay that company, like I pay Kaiser to be my medical, and they refuse me, I'll sue them because I pay them. They work for me. That's the problem that people don't realize. Those companies want you to think you work for them. I remember my buddy Paul, God rest his soul, he died a year ago. I remember he had a deviated septum, and he went into the doctors and they were like, you need to wear this breathing mask for the rest of your life. He says, I have a deviated septum. Why don't you go in and fix it? And they're like, oh no, we don't do that procedure, sir, but you can pay for this machine to be on it for the rest of your life. He says, I'm sorry, I don't work for you. You work for me. You're my insurance company that I fucking pay. You will, as the doctor, you will do what I tell my insurance company to do. Well, your insurance company won't cover it. He called the insurance company and said, unless you want to be sued, fired then sued, you will approve them to go in and fix surgically my deviated septum and not tell me that I am going to do what you tell me to do and put on a mask for the rest of my life. And they were like, well, sir, it's just our policy says, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm hanging up. You're going to get a call from my lawyer and I'm going to start a lawsuit. He hung up and he called his lawyer. The lawyer called them, and guess what? He went in and had surgery done, and he still sued them. Okay? He went in and had surgery done, and he still sued them because it took his lawyer to do it. Therefore, they filed a lawsuit, which that company paid. Then he fired them and went to another company for his medical insurance. Okay? So he was like, you work for me. I don't work for you. Most people, again, 84% of the population, kowtow and don't take that standpoint. The rest of the people do. That's 16% of the population. They know about that in their studies, but they believed that 16% will kowtow if everyone else does. And they found out the hard way that didn't happen during COVID. That those people still refused and then said, we'll fight you and we're going to fight you on this. And continued with the death by 1,000 slashes, which the Arabs always talked about in history. Okay. Okay, so wait a minute. So can you reread the last line from the book of Ra? You mean literally what we just covered here today? Or are you saying from the last book of the Law of One? I don't have the book, so I can't just pull it up. Celeste said, can you reread the last line of the book from the book of Ra? There was something my friend heard she wanted to hear again. So if it's from what we were talking about today, yeah, I can just rewind, but that's just in this session. So if it's actually the last line of the book, I would have to look that up. So let me know that, because if we can look that up right now if we need to, because I can just go to Melissa, thank you. She said, I just love listening to. Well, that's what I'm here to do is to help try and teach. She said, I love listening to. I learned so much. So Celeste, let me know if it is actually the book. No, it's something that I just played. Okay, yes, I can go back and rewind that. Let me, oops, hold on. Let me right now go back, and I'll back this up right now. I just backed up a couple minutes and we'll let it play. So if it was something that was from here, yes, I will. Let me play this again. right now. I just backed up. I don't know if it was just that same question. I just literally went click and pulled it back. So let me play this. And if it's, and by the time, if we get back up to where we were and you didn't hear it, let me know and I'll go back further. Okay. So let me do that so that we can hear that in case that there is something that she wants to address there. And then let me know what it is, if there's a question that she has, and we'll try to work on it and answer it. Okay. So let me go ahead and start playing raw. And Melissa, thank you for being here, by the way. I didn't see you earlier and say hi. If I don't have my glasses on, sometimes I don't see what you guys say unless I'm sitting back like this, because then I can read with this eye. I can read the chat. But if I'm sitting up here, I have to have my glasses on to read the chat. Okay, so let me play this and we'll try to find out what it was that your friend wanted to hear. And if there's any questions, we'll address that. Let's continue here with this.
Understood by, shall we say, physicists, scientists, or doctors? 44.13 Questioner. What I am trying to get at in this session is any practices that we might be able to do to best revitalize the instrument, for it is going to be necessary to do all we can to do this in order to maintain our contacts. Can you tell us what we could best do to increase the instrument's vitality for these contacts? Ra, I am Ra. Your experience was a function of your ability to contact intelligent infinity. Therefore, it does not have a direct bearing upon this instrument's vital energy. We have spoken before of those things which aid this instrument in the vital energy, the sensitivity to beauty, to the singing of sacred music, to the meditation and worship, to the sharing of self with self in freely given love either in social or sexual intercourse. These things work quite directly upon the vitality. This instrument has a distortion towards appreciation of variety of experiences. This, in a less direct way, aids vitality. 44.14 Questioner.
I think that's where we were. So I don't know if I went back far enough. Let me know, Celeste, if I didn't go back far enough, and if there is a question that she has about what Ross said there that we can clarify, that I can clarify if she needs that. Okay. So I'll just let it play a little bit more, but let me know if I didn't go back far enough, because I could always rewind again and go back further. Okay.
I was looking at the diagram of the advancement of magical practices starting from Makath and ending at Kether. I was wondering if these corresponded to the colors or the densities, with Makath as 1, Yezid as 2, Had and Netzach being 3, Tifereth 4, and so on. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is basically incorrect, although you are upon the correct track of thinking.
Right? Yeah, no, Rick goes, oh, it was the sex bit, right? Yeah, no, that's funny. She said that was perfect. We're discussing how to not be so drained from doing energy work, especially when you're doing channeling. So literally, you would know this as well, Celeste. I mean, you being a priestess and having a coven, you've been teaching this probably as long as I have, or close to it. You're only a few years younger than me. So you're okay. You're more than just a few years younger than me. But yeah, the right foods, the right meditation, the right rest, the right exercise, including the right music, harmonics in your life, the right energy foods that you eat. If you eat processed foods, fast foods, junk food, you're going to get junk energy that stifles what's happening in your abilities. If you shave your head and you don't have any long hair, I grow my beard because I don't have a lot of hair on top of my head, because you're supposed to have about 8 inches of hair either on your head or and if you're a man, you can grow a beard because the hair is like an antenna. So being this part of your body in your head and face. So if you're a woman having longer hair, this is why in societies around the world, they're trying to get you to cut your hair. They're trying to get you to shave your beards and women to cut their hair because that stifles your antennas to the universe. That's why in the Bible, in fact, in most Western Judeo-Christian Bibles, one of the things that are the laws is don't cut the hair at the side of your head. That's why Hasidic Jews don't, and that's why Arabs don't in Hindu practice. They don't cut their hair because it says so in the Bible. And why is that? You can look those things up, not just the Judeo-Christian Bible, but in all of that entire pantheon. And if you look throughout all of time, prior to the 1940s till now, in that 80-year time period, almost 100-year time period now, 80-year time period, around the world, before that, people would have long beards, long hair, And today, if you look in history, the wise wizard has long hair. The wise priestess or witch has long hair. Okay, so if the men can grow long hair, they have long hair, and if not, they grow the beard, or both, and the women grow the long hair. Traditionally, throughout all of time, including in Egypt, when you had even the women, pharaohs, wearing the beard of wisdom, they would put on a fake beard to show the beard of wisdom and that they would grow hair. So people, some like Cleopatra, I think it was, not Cleopatra because she had long hair, but I can't think of her name, Nefertiti, and she had a bald head. She would wear that fake beard, even though she had a bald head. Nefertiti and Nefertiti both had no hair, but they wore a fake beard. All the men throughout time. Then all of a sudden, the studies in psychology now say only clean-shaven people are trusted because people don't trust someone with a mustache or a beard because they think they're lying. That is a lie. That is a lie throughout time. Wisdom was long hair. Wisdom was long hair, not just gray hair, but long hair. Traditionally, throughout all of time, in every culture until 1940, around the world. And that is when the change happened, that everybody has to be clean-shaven, bald-headed, short-haired, otherwise they're not trustworthy. That's a concerted lie done on purpose. And the first thing that happens when you join the military in any country in the modern era is they shave your head bald because they're taking away your personality, and they tell you they're doing that. They're beating you down as an individual and building you up as a unit, as a eunuch, as a unit. And people think that word means a bunch of people, and it means one individual who is completely under the control of the powers that should not be. When they say, go kill, go die for us, you just do it because all of your individuality is gone, and all of your ability from your antennas and your third eye is closed, and therefore you're just a automaton. You're like a robot. Okay, so the right proper foods, the proper energy foods, the right nutrients, the right sleep, the right exercise, the right music, all of that. And this is why we teach that as you start to wake up, all of your things change, all of your likes change, all the food you eat will change. When you start exercising, you start wanting to eat better because you realize you get better energy from better food, and that helps you to then continue to work out better and exercise. So it becomes a cycle that happens automatically. The same thing when you stop eating crap food, and you'll as you start to wake up, you'll not want to watch horror movies. Everything will change about your psyche. And the music you listen to, the books you read, the things you watch on television, how you talk to people, how you see yourself, all of that changes. So you have to become aware of that. First step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. You have to become aware of that in whatever you're doing. You have to be all in to that. And all of those things are encompassed. And at first it's hard because you have to, like when you're meditating, when I talked about to Denise about meditating, or anyone that I teach, the hardest thing is to quiet your mind. That's the first and hardest part of ascension, is the realization that I am not the thinking mind. I am not the ego. I am not this pain body. I am something completely different that is astral, in a different plane, not in third dimension. The other D that I'm in, the 3D I'm in, is not dimension, it's density. And density is a place of spirit, soul, that is not this physical place that is observing this physical place from that place. But the only way that you can see that is through the meditation or the realization that you're doing that naturally, to get onto that realization and to then start to practice that. So what you're trying to do in meditation is achieve that place of the experiencer. And what you're trying to do here is to achieve that all the time in your entire life, in your conscious waking life, all day, all night, every day, is what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve that place of meditation that is outside the reach, above the reach of your thinking mind, above the reach of your ego at all times. That's the hardest thing to do, is to realize it and reach it for the first time. Once you experience it once, that's why we show you that 30-second meditation to do that. Once you experience that once, you realize that it's achievable and you know what you're looking for. And then it makes practicing meditation become easier because you know what you're trying, the outcome is what you're trying to do. And the more often you do that, the easier it becomes for you to do. And eventually you perpetually get into that state. But everything in this place tries to pull you out of that. The television, the internet, people around you, your coworkers, life just driving down the road, because most of those people are in this place. And they're not even in the current now in this place. They're in this place and they're thinking about what they have to do, thinking about what they didn't do, thinking about where they're going, and they're not thinking about what they're doing. They're thinking about everything else. I got to go here. I got to go there. I don't have enough time in the day. I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do that and I got to do this. I forgot to do this and I didn't do that and I didn't know my no. And so you're so scatterbrained that you're not living in the now. That's why we say stop and smell the roses. Okay. So let's continue with Rob. But yeah, you have to practice that all the time and be aware. That's why I don't drink out of plastic. I drink out of glass. This is porcelain, which is better than plastic. But I don't drink out of plastic. I don't drink out of certain things. I don't drink bottled water because the plastic is a carbon footprint. So this is a peanut butter jar that I paid for when I bought peanut butter. And why not? It's a glass that works just like a glass to drink out of. And I got it with a jar of peanut butter. So now I just recycle those. Do you see? So all of my drinking cups are old peanut butter jars. And I threw away everything else. My mom likes to drink out of plastic. Well, she's old and they're lighter, so I let her do that. So she drinks out of plastic and I drink out of glass or porcelain when I drink my coffee. So I have coffee in here, or tea. Today it's coffee, and have water in here. Okay. And that's why I do that. Why? Because of the crap that's in everything else. And then I filter my own water. So I'm not buying the water in case after case after case. First thing I did when I got here was realize my parents had 4 or 5 cases of water sitting around, and they had all these plastic bottles that were going out. And okay, they're going to a recycle bin, but that's a high carbon footprint. I'm like, why don't you just buy a filter and filter your water? It's going to be better filtered than what you're getting in that bottled water anyway. And your carbon footprint decreases. So you don't have this plastic that doesn't ever break down. It just breaks down to smaller particles, but it doesn't go away. And so people are like, oh, I recycle. It still doesn't break down. So they're creating new plastic to make those bottles of bottled water, then wrapping it in plastic. And then you take it home and you take it, oh no, I threw it in the recycle bin, so it goes somewhere and it's being recycled into what? Into some kid's toy or something else. And then eventually that's going to be thrown in the garbage. And that piece of plastic will break down into smaller pieces of plastic and then just continue to break down into smaller pieces of plastic and then leach into the water that you're drinking and the food you're eating. So you're going to be consuming that plastic because it doesn't stop. It doesn't break down. Like if you take a glass turns into sand. Glass turns back into sand in the ocean. And we already have that. We scoop it up to make glass out of it, and it returns to that state when it breaks down. So that is renewable and recyclable. Plastic is not something that is natural on this earth that we go and get. Plastic is a byproduct of our fossil fuels being turned into gasoline from oil. So we consume the oil and we turn it into gasoline, and one of the byproducts of that is soap, and the other byproduct is plastic. And so we're using the plastic and molding it into shit. But the truth is, it doesn't occur naturally in nature. It's when we're changing the chemistry of the oil to leach the petroleum out so that we can make that blow up in our cars that we're getting the plastic. This is why people say, well, we should go to electric. The problem is that they don't want you to know about that these electric cars are putting particulates in the air that are more polluting than what they're replacing from the fossil fuels and everything that comes out of the tailpipe of the fossil fuel. You can look that up. But I would stay off Google trying to look it up. I would look it up on DuckDuckGo where they're not going to be lying to you. But even Google, because people on the news are talking about it. They don't want you to know about that because they want you to buy into these electric cars. The truth is that what's being emitted out of that tailpipe, the ionized electricity from that engine Just like if you go into a tattoo parlor, you can smell the ionization from that electric engine that is running the tattoo gun is the same electric engine that's running your car. You just don't notice the smell because that one is very pungent in a small room. So walk into a tattoo parlor and smell the air. That is actually toxic particulates that are in the air from the electricity in that engine that is running the little tattoo needle. You should look that up. Those particulates come off of an electric car, and they're like 300 times more polluting to the air than the fossil fuel exhaust leak that's coming off of your gasoline car currently. They don't want you to know about that. You should look that up. You should look that up. Don't believe that what I'm telling you is true. Just like somebody said either that because I always say that. Don't believe. Assume I'm lying to you and look that up, and you're going to find that out to be true. Also, the amount of materials it takes to make the batteries to run one of these electric cars that they currently have. You can make 90 or 86 hybrid cars. And why is it that the hybrid cars, for the last 25, 30 years of the hybrid cars, you didn't have to plug in the hybrid car to charge the battery? When your car was running on the gasoline, the generator that generates the power to charge your batteries to start your car, charge the batteries for the electric part of your motor, so that when you drove on the electric side and not the gasoline, it was charged the second you started driving the gasoline side. Now they've disconnected that and put a port in there to where when you're driving the electric side of these cars that are hybrids, you have to now plug the hybrid in to get the battery charged. And then you can drive it on the gasoline side, which you have to put in gas to drive, because they've disconnected the charging from the voltage regulator in the car when it generates power as it's driving as a gasoline car. They've disconnected that charging the batteries because they're trying to get you used to the idea of plugging in your car, because they're trying to transition you to charging your car only by plugging it in. So now all the new cars that are out there, you now have to plug in to get electricity into the electric side and put gas in. And what they're hoping is that you get tired of doing one of them, and you'll just, when they say you're going to have electric cars, you're used to plugging them in and you have to use them. So now you have to use the charging stations. So all the money that the governments are paying companies to start into charging stations, now people have to go to the charging stations or plug it into their house. Either way, they have to buy electricity from the grid to charge your car, which you didn't have to do until 2024. Ever on the face of this earth, because all vehicles before that were electric hybrids charged by the car running when it was in gas mode, because that was creating and generating power to be able to charge your batteries. Still does that. They just don't have the connection there anymore for it to charge those batteries. Took it out, put a port on the side for you to plug in, and you're unaware of it. And some of you probably are hearing it for the very first time right now when I'm talking to you. Okay, but you can look that up. That's what they're doing. All of that's part of the agenda to force you into getting used to the idea of plugging in your car, because they're transitioning you to what they want. And you should look up who it is that owns all these electric companies. It's the same people who own the petroleum companies that are giving you the gasoline now. So it's not like they're ending this or getting rid of the rich and we're firing them because they're own the oil companies and we're making them go out of business. Those people under a different company name, owned by the same people, are the ones that are going to be selling you the batteries, the cars, and the electricity that you're going to be plugging in. So those same rich people who were oil barons are now going to be electric barons. And some of them already were. The Vanderbilts own the Pacific Gas and Electric Company out here in the west coast of the United States, and they have for the last 50 years. Those are the same people that are married into the family that own the oil industries. Okay, so they're just transitioning you from one thing they already own to another industry that they already own. Otherwise, if that were the case and it was just some people in politics going up against these oil companies, those oil companies who are the richest families on the face of the earth would be getting those people replaced out of politics and paying them off, and they're not. Why? Why are they not? Because they're making the same money. As soon as you transition, you're going to be paying their company that they own through a proxy company or a company that is the overseeing company that is owned, that you don't know about, because I know how to do this. I wrote about this in my book. You literally own a company, and that's an umbrella corporation. Okay, and you make it an LLC, and then that company owns other companies that you start, and that company will own, one of those companies owns the company that will be the electric company. So they get paid, and then money goes back to the other company, and that money gets funneled back to the big company that's the umbrella company, and that money goes to the people who own that, and they own all the other companies, and they take a piece of every pie, and they get rich. And you think, like Budweiser, when Bud Light came out and everybody in America went crazy and stopped buying Bud Light, everyone's like, we'll show them, we're going to start buying Stella Artois. Stella Artois is owned by the same company who owns Anheuser-Busch. Okay. Well, I'm not going to buy that. We're going to buy Stroh's, owned by the same company, because there's no Anheuser and no Busch that owns the Anheuser-Busch Corporation anymore. Okay. They sold to a company that was in Brazil, who sold all of their corporations to a company in Sweden. I think it's Sweden. You could look that up. I did when everybody stopped buying from Bud Light and said, we're going to start buying the Stella Artois at the time. It's a French beer, not owned by the French anymore, bought up by the Brazilians, and the Brazilians sold it to the Swedes. And the Swedes bought everything else from that company that they bought. Okay, that's like these glasses. There is not a pair of sunglasses or glasses manufactured anywhere on this planet that is not owned by one Italian man. Look them all up. Don't care the corporation name. He owns all of them. They did an interview with him, and people were like, you own every glass company on the earth. And he's like, yes. And when one starts up and they start getting big, I buy it from that person. You could do the same thing. And they're like, so every glass and every single nation on the face of the earth, every company that makes goggles, sunglasses, and prescription glasses is owned by one person on the earth. Owns them all. Look it up. Okay, that's like BlackRock Corporation here in the United States. BlackRock Corporation here in the United States owns at least 24% of almost every company in the United States. Every one. And some of them, they own a controlling interest in these big, huge corporations. Meta. Mark Zuckerberg, well, he owns all of that. No, he doesn't. He only owns a percentage of it. You don't know that because you don't look it up. 1% of the population of this earth owns 90% of all wealth. And the other 10% is small little mom and pop businesses around the world that aren't big enough to be worried about by them yet. Truth, look it up. Truth, look it up. All right, let's continue.
Each of these stations has a complex number and shading of energy centers, as well as some part in various balances. The lower.
Denise just looked him up. Right? Denise just looked him up. Is that his name? She said his name is, and I don't know how to say it, but it's Luxottica. That's the guy who owns I think that's who she's referring to. That's the guy who owns every single corporation, company worldwide that makes glasses, that makes sunglasses. Doesn't matter the company. Ray-Ban. I love Ray-Bans. I love lowriders. All of those. He owns them all. And he owns the companies who sell them. Right? So if you go to a company like out here in the United States, there was Sunglasses USA or something like that. There was a bunch of companies. He owns them too. Not a joke. Look it up. Yeah. Denise said, yeah, she looked it up. So that's the truth. He's Italian. I saw an interview with him, and he was just full on. They were like, you literally own everything. And he's like, yep, I do. And when somebody starts up, when they get to a certain size to where they become a competitor for any one of my companies anywhere in the world, I make them an offer they can't refuse. Buy them out. And I either close the company or integrate the company and run it. And just keep everybody on board to run the company so that everyone in the world thinks there's 100,000, 1 million different companies out there. The truth is he owns them all. He's like a trillionaire. Let's continue.
And the total balance. Thus there are complex colors or rays and complex charges.
That's what it was. Sunglasses Hut. Thank you. Yeah, she's like naming them off now. She's Ray-Ban, Sunglasses Hut, Lens Crafters. He owns all of those. Yeah, those are just the American companies, the big American companies. Right? Rick said, I love my, in all in capital letters, I love my Saturday mornings with you guys. I know, right? Okay, let's continue here.
If you will, in each station. 44.15 Questioner. Well, does the left-hand path of this represent the service to self path more and the right-hand path the service to others? Ra. I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. This is incorrect.
Yeah.
These stations are relationships. Each path has these relationships offered. The intent of the practitioner in working with these powerful concepts determines the polarity of the working. The tools are the tools. 44.16 Questioner. As an ending question I will just ask, is it possible, then, for the ipsissimus to have either positive or negative polarity, or must he be neither? Ra. I am Ra. We shall respond to the meaning of this term in a specialized sense. The ipsissimus is one who has mastered the tree of life and has used this mastery for negative polarization. Is there any brief query which we may respond to as we take leave of this instrument? 44.17 Questioner. I am sorry that we got a little off the track today. I think the most important thing we accomplished is knowing how to better regulate the instrument's sessions, and I would hope that you would bear with me for my inability to select questions properly at times, since I just happen, sometimes, to probe into areas to see if there is a possible direction we may go, and once entering, Other than that, I would just like to know if there is anything this session that we could do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Ra. I am Ra. There are no mistakes. Be at rest, my friend. Each of you is most conscientious. All is well. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. I am Ra. Adonai.
I almost hit start again like I did last week. I always think I have to stop it because I think it's going to play on its own, but it doesn't. Okay, so energy. Let's recap. Right, energy in channeling or doing energy work. And here's something that we didn't talk about, Celeste. You might want to tell your friend if you're still here. This is what I've been teaching forever, going back to my early 20s. Even before that, but I wasn't teaching on a mass when I was a teenager because I was still kind of hiding what I know about the universe. And so I was doing more studying because I still didn't want to believe 100% of what I knew. So I was still investigating that. Okay, good. Celeste said, no, we're still here. So you should never use your own personal energy. And this is why Dawn was questioning Ra. Was because he was like, well, it seems like that Carla's using her own personal energy. And Ra constantly tries to explain that Carla is actually pulling in this energy and has an energy reserve. You should never use your own personal energy. You should always draw energy in from the universe to do any work. Even if you're going to be working with the energy of the universe, you should never transmute the energy. You're going to do that anyway because you have to transmute it through yourself. That's why we all end up with white hair. That's why I used to laugh when I was in my 20s and I would say, show me a witch or a warlock. Show me a druid or a druidess, a priest or a priestess, and I'll show you someone who dyes their hair. Because transmuting energy makes you lose the pigment of your hair quickly. So the more that you're casting spells, the more that you're in any way channeling energy, channeling someone, being a medium and doing medium work, casting spells, writing spells, anything where you're doing that and bringing energy through, like I'm a Reiki master teacher, utilizing that energy and transmuting it through your physical body, it drains your physical body of the color of your pigment of the antenna, your hair. So it's rare to see someone who transmutes a lot of energy keep their color unless they're dyeing their hair. I can't dye my hair because I'm allergic to the dyes because my skin's a lot like an albino. When it comes to that, I've because of being a wanderer, I have issues. So you should always, when preparing to do work, you should always pull energy from the universe and charge your body with energy. What I used to do is, and I would teach people how to do this, where if you're trying to set up, say, a boundary or cast a circle, and you're concerned because people will try to get it into your mind that when you cast a circle, it's temporary and it'll go away on its own. If you didn't have somebody teach you that in the beginning, when you're doing things, you have a better chance of not having to think about that and creating something that's temporary. But the world will try to bombard you and break down your barriers. So what I used to teach people is how to set up a battery bank of energy in the thin air, and that you would imagine it being in a place and creating like a battery in nothingness, and then pulling energy from the universe and filling that void with coherent energy that's job is to continue feeding whatever, say if you're casting a circle to do work, or casting a defensive bubble around yourself, your house, or whatever, or cleansing a house that continues to feed that energy. And you can set up that energy to be constantly tapping energy from the universe so that you don't have to fill that as well. So that's just like casting a spell instantaneously. Once, some people will tell you, if you go back and you read, say, the Necronomicon, you'll see that there's some spells in, depending on the book that you get when you buy the copy of it, because there's several different copies of it out there, to where they're casting a spell and they're teaching you these spells they're casting that take months. Some take a month, some take 3 months, some take 6 months to cast. That's the way they used to do it back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. You don't have to do that anymore. And we used to teach, and I still do this, I teach you to write out the entire spell and cast that entire spell with a single word or a phrase that is less than the whole entire spell. And you memorize and you link the spell in its entirety to that phrase. That every time you say protect, that means that entire spell that you created for that protect spell is cast when you think the words protect. Because the concept of what you're doing in your mind is always the same. So you don't have to sit there and go, hi diddly diddly, the casting in the thirdly, unless you feel that it's necessary for you to do that and speak those words every single time, and do it on the full moon or the new moon or the half moon, or whenever you think that you have to do it, because that's the way it was done traditionally for more power and strength throughout time. Are those things still valid? And do you have more energy at those times? Yes. And Celeste, as a priestess, will tell you that that is true. However, you also have to be able to cast spells instantly and work with energy from the universe instantaneously. And I used to teach a class, myself and my Wiccan priestess, who was my Reiki master teacher when I was in my 20s. We used to meet once a month. And then we started doing it once a week, where we were teaching people how to, in your everyday life, cast spells in a very fast manner, to where you didn't have to go through all these rituals to get things done, and that you can do in the modern era to protect yourself. Like, for instance, you're worried about your vehicle and your vehicle getting broken into. And I would tell people, why don't you cast a spell on your car? Every time you get out of your car, you cast a spell on that car, that anyone that comes within 10 feet or 20 feet of that car believes that car is owned by a sheriff's deputy. They don't know how they know it, but every time they look at the car, they go, that's a cop's car. I better not fuck with that, because they're probably recording everything, or they're around here somewhere. And it creates that fear in them to do anything to it. And when I said that out loud in this group, even the owner of the store turned around and went, is that a thing? And my priestess, who was my Reiki master teacher, she goes, no, yeah, he does this in real life. And I've had people come in and go, where's the cop that owns that car out there? And she's like, which one? That one. I walk by it and I'm like, that's owned by a cop. And she's like, no, it's him. He's not a cop. And so independent of me saying that, people would say that and get that impression, because I put that purposely on the vehicle. And that helps protect the vehicle. That's putting a protect spell around the vehicle so that nobody will screw with it. Someone who's really evil is going to go, I'm going to fuck with this cop car. I think it's a cop car. I just know it is. And I'm going to fuck with it. So you're going to have, if that one person runs into it, it's possible that somebody could do something. Somebody decided to unscrew and steal the antenna off of my vehicle. Was that somebody who was evil and got that same ideology and decided to screw with the cop by stealing his antenna? Don't know. Could have been some drunk guy or some kid, whatever, right? Don't know. But that's the worst that's happened. So in everything that you do, you have to learn to utilize energy that's there in the universe to be used freely. Infinite energy from infinite wisdom, from infinite love through the infinity itself, from source, is there for us to tap into. Our our immortal, indestructible ability as humans is the power of creation. We are co-creators because we are, in fact, the creator. And we're supposed to be aware of that. That means you have at your disposal. So instead of using your personal energy and depleting your own energy source that you only get through food and water and energy that you create by doing that, always use energy from somewhere else, but always give back. And that's why if you're a Reiki practitioner, you're always taught, draw in the energy of the universe and use it, and then wash your hands and expend it back, return what you don't use, so that you're not also keeping that energy and having too much energy for yourself. Okay. So proper food, proper exercise, proper rest, proper meditation, proper energy management is going to change the course of how things affect you and how they don't affect you in a negative way. So this is what Ra was really trying to get across to Dawn about Carla in all of this entire episode today. Right? Yes, Celeste said, and that's what we always teach that too, right? In the beginning, Celeste said, I agree. I always suggest using tools when you start. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll get into that too. When you don't have them, you can still use them in your mind's eye. And why do we teach them to use tools? Because before we can before we can get you to transition to high magic, that's magic with a K, we have to get you used to the idea. And for you to get used to the idea, we give you the tools. First, you have the tools in your hands to do things, right? You have the tools, say it's the knife for cutting and for drawing and scrying, whatever, the incense, all of that. And then we transition you, like Celeste just said here, into even if you don't have the physical tool, now you're used to the mindset of the tool. You can now tap into the tool in your mind's eye and still go through the motions of having the tool. Now you're projecting, and then eventually we take that away from you and show you that you don't even need that because you are the tool. So your next evolution is that you don't need the tool. You don't have to project the tool in your mind because you are the tool. And then you become the tool, become the spoon. That was the message in the Matrix. How do I make the spoon move? You become the spoon. You are the spoon. So that's what the kid was trying to get that across to Neo. Neo got that when he died and then stood back up and was able to see, but they didn't tell you about that in the movie, that's how he learned that. He became the tool. He became the tool. He became the spoon, and then he stood back up and he wasn't dead, and then he could see the Matrix for what it was now, because that was his awakening, his epiphany, his death and resurrection as the hero character, as the savior character in the Matrix. And so he then stood up and he could not be killed by anyone in the Matrix because he was above it, because he is the Matrix. And that was what that entire movie was supposed to be showing you. So you have to become the tool and realize that. So the first evolution is, here's tools that you use, and we teach you how to empower those tools with energy. You're doing it, and you're giving that tool the energy and your will and what you're doing, right? The charm of making, right? By your creation, you're making this happen. Then even if you don't have the tool, you can still do it. We get you used to that idea. And then eventually in high magic, when you start to learn that, is you are the tool. You have been the tool from the beginning. You're the circle you're casting. You're the altar. You're the incense. You are all of those things. So as we transition you into higher and higher magic, you are able to transmute more and more energy and do these things more instantaneously. This is the way it is with spirituality in general, not just magic. For those of you who might be religious, and I just offended you by talking to, now you're the devil, man, right? But yeah, Celeste is absolutely right. So we always suggest using a tool, like she said, when you start, and then when you don't have them, you can still use them in your mind's eye. And the next transition is you are the tool. You don't need any of that. But the Padawan learner will not be able to do that. The transition in the middle, they'll be able to accept it and do it without the tool, because now they see that they were the one that was charging the tool anyways. And that transitions you to the higher magic of you don't need any of that, because you are the tool. You are the creator. You're the co-creator of this place. So therefore, this place has to bend to your will because you created it. We all created this, because this isn't really happening. It just thinks it is. Okay. It was designed to think that it's happening. It's not alive. It's in our mind. So it is alive in that sense. It's being recreated here constantly by all of us. Trees are green because we all see them as green and we agree that they're green. Therefore, they're all different shades of green, unless they're in fact red or orange or yellow, right? And we look at the seasons and say that's the seasons. If you live anywhere where there's seasons, like in the United States, especially in the East, where you have the 3 seasons and the transition, your whole life has been that way. You expect it to be that way. So when you go into autumn, you expect that autumn is going to be. You're creating that because you're believing that it's supposed to be that way and that it's going to continue that cycle. Do you see? So you are the creator. You are what is creating this place. That's the transition into higher magic, from high magic into higher spirituality, from spirituality to the realization that I am not the thinking mind. I am not the physical pain body. I am not the ego. What am I? I am the spirit. I am the observer. I am the creator. I am the experiencer. None of this is happening to me. It's all happening for me. As you're moving up in your ascension, you start to realize that, and you start becoming more energy, and you start losing the physical body. You become denser in a spiritual way, which is in density, not in dimension. And that is where you're trying to transition through meditation. That is what this entire episode, this entire session was what Raw was trying to get across to Dawn, who was kind of missing it. And he was trying to explain to Dawn that particular scenario. And then they get into it a little bit further in the next session. Okay. So you guys have any other questions? If not, I'm probably going to get off here because it's almost 6 o'clock now, right? 5:37 my time. So it looks like right. So it looks like some of you are already starting to leave anyway, right? So it's getting late anyway. So we'll just call it because we finished that session. So instead of starting, we'll start the next session. We'll start session 45 because that was 44. We'll start session 45 next week. Okay. So remember that in your daily life, that transitioning your energy is going to need more processing of energy, which means you need better consumption of energy. You need to rest, you need to exercise, you need to sleep properly, you need to eat properly, and then you need to change things about your life. That's why I literally said that in my reel, that you need to relax. Last night when I posted that one, relax and trust in the universe. And if you can't relax, you need to change something about your life because something's wrong. So if you can't quiet your mind and you can't relax, there's something in your physical life that's not right, and that's why you can't do it. So the first hardest problem is quieting the mind. So first you have to realize that it's not you. That's not me. I'm not the thinking mind. That's just something that is designed to be like this here. The ego is designed to do that. The mind is designed to do what the ego says or what I say. And that's just the physical body. That's this place. And it's susceptible to whatever I tell it to do. Its job is to run this pain body. My job is to tell it to do that. But I don't sit here and think heartbeat, 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 inhale, exhale, heartbeat, heartbeat, blood pump. I don't think those things. That's what the mind does on its own. It is the engine that runs this body. I'm not that engine. I'm the person driving the body. Do you see? I'm not the engine. The engine is this flesh thing inside my head that we call a brain. That's the engine that's running this body. The heart is the central organ that's keeping the body going. right? But the mind is what's keeping the heart going and everything else. It subconsciously says, inhale, exhale, pump, 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 pump. And when I move, I think, move my fingers, and the brain makes the fingers move. It's driving this. I'm not thinking, move this finger. I come up with a concept of I want my finger to move, and the body does it for me automatically. Okay, that's called muscle memory. Once you do a thing enough, the brain realizes what your concepts are. So you're just thinking concepts, you just don't know that until you become aware of it. And that's where we're trying to get you into that position of when you're transitioning into the higher self, is the realization that you are higher than this. And we show you how to achieve that. And that's what you're trying to achieve in meditation. And then we tell you that's what you're trying to achieve at all times, is to get yourself, after you wake up, your ego's going to scream at you and your mind's going to tell you all kinds of negative shit, scare you, freak you out, or tell you you're the greatest on the face of the earth at everything. Just ask me, I'll tell you. Once you transition into the physical body, you then are supposed to be trying to get to a place where I am in that place where I'm the witnesser, I'm the experiencer, and you're trying to stay there all day, no matter what's going on in the universe. Once you can achieve that, which is hard, once you can achieve that, you don't have to sit down and meditate all day, because you're actually meditating at all times. Every chance that you're not being occupied by something distracting you. And when something distracts you and you realize you got distracted, you push yourself back into that place again. That is what you're trying to achieve. Your success in getting out of this place is determined by your focus. That's why Qui-Gon Jinn said that in the Star Wars movies. Your focus, remember, your focus decides your reality. Your focus creates your reality. So the more you focus on either this place, then you're stuck in the matrix, or you focus on something other than this place. And what is that? This is what, referring to what Rick was talking about earlier. What's happening now around the world is people are starting to realize this place isn't working right. There's something wrong with it. It's that moment that Neo had in the Matrix when he was in the Matrix for the first time, and they were walking along and he saw the cat walk by, and then he looked up to follow the people and the cat walked by again, the same cat. And he was like, that's weird. I just saw a cat walk by, and then the same cat walked by again. They're like, are you sure it was the same cat? Yeah, why? Something's changed in the Matrix. Okay. That's what's happening to you around the world, is you're starting to realize something's wrong with this reality. And you don't know what it is. Even if you're unaware of it, but you know that you've been stuck here and you feel like you've been stuck here. I'm tired. We've been here a long time. I'm only whatever age you are, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, whatever your age is. But it feels like I've been here for like a really long time. It's just really heavy and everything's weighing on me and I don't get it. That's where everybody is starting to get. And they're looking around for someone to tell them what's going on. And 90% of the people that are supposed to be awake in these places are just advertising their skills and themselves to make money. They're not actually teaching anyone anything. They are becoming what the religions that are failing, all of them on this earth. The Christian religion, and I'm a Christian minister in 2 different churches. And they're teaching you, wait here, God's coming back in a bus to get you. Be good. Then all of a sudden they're telling you the Jesus story as if he's Santa Claus. You better watch out. You better not pout. You better not cry. I'm telling you why. Jesus is coming to town. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been good or bad. So be good for goodness sake. Because when he comes back in the bus, he's only going to pick up those people. God's going to come as a thief in the night. He's only going to get the good ones. And everybody else is going to be left behind. That's the story of Santa Claus, which is the same story of the Christos, by the way, which is the Christ oil, which is the ascension, not Jesus's return. Jesus' return isn't going to happen. He never said he was coming back in a bus to get a bunch of people. The way to heaven is through me, not wait for me to come back and get you. Okay, so if you believe in Jesus and that Jesus is your Savior, believe the words Jesus said to you. He never said, wait here, I'll go get a bus and I'll come back for you. But I'm not going to tell you when. I'm going to come back at a certain point. That's what they're teaching you. Do good deeds here and do what I tell you to do, and you'll get rewarded after you die. That's them telling you to be their slave so that they can run you around and have you do shit for them. So they don't have to do any fucking work and they get paid all kinds of money. Give us money. We'll make sure you have a good seat. That's why Metallica back in the 80s wrote that song, Leper Messiah. Send me money, send me green, heaven you will meet. Make your contribution and you'll get a better seat. Bow to Leper Messiah. That was why they wrote that song. Because that's what the churches are telling you. Wait here. Just chill. Just wait. God's coming back. We don't know when, so be ready. He can come at any moment. They even have a website you can go to right now. Billy Graham's kid, or Billy Graham. Whichever Graham is still alive. There's a site. Am I going to heaven or not? Go to this site and it'll tell you. It's a questionnaire. Are you being good? Have you been baptized? Are you ready for God? Are you living a good life? Then you get to go to heaven when he's returning. But to prove it, we need you to come to our church all the time and be loyal to our church so that you're in good standing, because when Jesus comes, he's going to check in with us. And we're going to give him the list that Santa Claus has. See, because we're keeping on the list for God. Do you see? So when they return, they're going to check with the church and see if you're in good standing with the church, so you get to go. If you're not coming to church, they're going to know, because what? You're going to tell them? I thought God was all seeing. Oh, no, shh. Blasphemy. Watch what you're saying. You're going to go to hell. Do you see how they'll work you? That is what they're teaching. They're not teaching you how to ascend. They're not teaching you how to go to heaven. They're teaching you how not to miss the bus. You're aware of that, whether you're aware of it or not. Okay? And so everybody out there in the world, if you're listening to my voice, don't believe me. Think I'm lying to you. But look into yourself and ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself why I feel that it's hopeless. Why? Because that's what they're telling me on television, that I'm a slave and it's hopeless and they're evil people, run everything, and there is no good in the world. Because I always ask, how many people do you think are evil? What do you think the dynamic is between good to evil ratio on the earth? Every time I ask that to anyone, they're like, oh, 50-50 easily. I'm like, so you literally believe that half of the planet are evil? Oh, God, yeah. It's evils everywhere. Because that's what they want you to believe. 14% of the population is evil, and only 1% of them own 99% of everything. Okay? So 1% is telling you that there's more evil than there are good, and you're hopeless, and the religions are all fake and they don't exist, and they're lying to you anyways, which is true because they're not fake, but they are lying to you the way they're telling you now. But if you look at the way the person like Jesus or Mohammed or Moses or any of those people 5,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago, what they were teaching you, the Buddha, Lao Tzu, what they were teaching then is not what they're teaching you now. Okay? That has been corrupted. I'm going to talk about that more in my next book. First, I'm trying to get this book out, which the editors have currently, and I'm waiting for them to give me that so I can disapprove and approve of whatever and go to the next level of that and get that book out this year. The next book that I'm going to be putting together is going to show the correlation of when those things changed in the world and how they've changed, which is really going to piss off the current churches. Okay? The first book that I'm writing, The Reality About Reality, which is I'm waiting for them to edit so I can publish it. The Reality About Reality, returning to the old ways, that's going to piss off. I'm going to get backlash from all sides. I'm going to tell you I'm crazy, I'm making shit up, I'm lying, all of that. Believe them and look it up for yourself. Think for yourself. All right, guys. I love you guys. I will see you guys next week, and we'll start the next session. Have a great weekend. Saturday, if you're over on that side of the Prime Meridian. Friday night, if you're over on this side of the Prime Meridian. So early morning, if you're European or Eastern from that, because it's already going into morning for you over there. But if you're out here in Hawaii, Hawaii and Alaska is the only place behind me in time. Because I'm in California. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show.